morning, good morning. It's tad past 8 o'clock, and it's time for us to have our work session relative to the agenda. As I look down the sheet, the invocation will be done by Pastor Douglas Dexter with First Christian Church of Mount Olive, and as I understand it, Mr. Joe Gurley will introduce him. Mr. Pate, you will do our pledge of allegiance. And Mr. Wood, I defer to you, sir, for the adjustment of the agenda.
Right. Mr. Chairman, I believe we have two things. One is that we would like to walk on this resolution, a resolution requesting an amendment to the Route to Opportunity and Development Act of 2014 and the companion U.S. House Bill number 4829. And I can go into that now if you'd like, or we can wait.
If you feel comfortable waiting,
We'll wait.
Take care of it at that time.
And then the only other thing, we already have a closed session listed, and we did need to do some things in closed session.
Mr. Woods, where on the program will did I miss something?
New business.
New business, we're under approval of minutes and then special recognitions.
No,
I'm
I
sorry,
meant-
where would you put this? I'm sorry.
Number 6?
I'll wake up in a minute.
All right,
We would put this under new business, yes, sir.
so it'll be
Number
our number
6.
6. All right. Well, coming on down the line, special recognitions, you would take care of Betty Morris' retirement
That's
plan.
right.
George Lee.
And I believe we will also have, Tim Rogers will be here, is that right?
They are both scheduled to be here, yes, sir.
Okay.
Well, the 1, 2, and 3,
Number 2 would be Aaron McAuliffe.
We've asked the department head to come in and say a
yes.
few words about both of those two employees under 1 and 2.
okay.
And Ms. McAuliffe will also talk about the open enrollment from Medicare for just a few minutes.
Did you say, who will say that? Yes.
Aaron McAuliffe,
Okay.
Services on Aging Director.
All right. Mr. Gurley, appointments?
Yes, sir, we have some.
All right. Unfinished business, resolution amending the agreement between the County of Wayne and the City of Goldsboro, establishing the Gold Wayne Transportation Authority.
At the previous meeting, I had gone over the language with y'all that we'd like to see in the amendment to the agreement between us and the city on Gateway, primarily dealing with how rates, fees, and charges are approved. While y'all approve that, we would like to have it formally in a resolution, because everything else done on those, establishing that authority and changing how the 7th member is elected, all of those changes have been done by resolution. So we felt to be consistent and have a clear track record, we would do everything by resolution. So all this does is, under section 1, is adopts the same language that we talked about at the last meeting. I've also sent this over to the city manager, and they will be doing something similar. In fact, I think they were taking it up yesterday. And so what this will do then is make it clear that from here on out, any changes in rates, charges, or fees at Gateway, if it's on the rural system, the County Board of Commissioners has to approve it in writing. If it's on the city system, then the City of Goldsboro's City Council has to approve it in writing.
Very good.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr.
while we're on that, not trying to open up Pandora's box, but it seemed be a little bit of confusion when the organization of the new board, the new members of the board took their seats. And the confusion is based upon this agreement, modified. it was my interpretation that basically at that point, that election of officers, that there would be three individuals from the city and three individuals from the county, and that they would then elect the officers, and that they then would elect and appoint the seventh member. And there seemed to be a little bit of confusion in regards to that process. And I would ask that we kind of refine that so that that doesn't occur again. Because the existing seventh member voted for the appointment of the new seventh member. I'm sorry, of the officers.
Right.
Of the officers. Did in fact appoint a vote for the other, but we rescinded that. There's a little bit of confusion there, and hopefully we can get that addressed.
I think we can, this Thursday, when we have that orientation session, would be an excellent time, I think.
Good point.
To go over that and make it clear that that was an amendment that took place. And then this would be the second amendment to it that I'm aware of. I don't think there was a third, was there? That's it.
Okay.
So I think that would be an excellent time because both the Board of Commissioners will be there and also the City Council.
Okay.
And all the members of the Gateway Board. And just to remind everybody, that's 2 o'clock here on Thursday in this room.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
On the consent agenda, it seems that we have one item, and are there any questions or concerns about that one particular item, that it will not flow during our regular meeting as a consent item? Haven't heard nothing. We'll move on to new business. Motion to approve the resolution accepting the tax settlement with the Wayne County Tax Administrator July 1, 2013 through June 30, 2014. And I see that the next three are related to the same item, and
We'll have Mr. Lumpkin here. He's here now.
He's
If you
here
want
now.
to go into any details now, or we can just go over it at the meeting. But I guess the primary thing is that we have two settlements, and the reason for that is you settle with the tax collector at the end of each fiscal year, so that would have been June 30th. So you settled with Mr. Ward at that point, and that's why this first one is a settlement through June 30th. The second part, if you go to page 13 of the agenda, I've given you the state statute on that that talks about settlements, and the first one is annual settlement of tax collector. That's the first item that we're dealing with. Then if you flip the page to page 14, you'll see under D, settlement upon vacancy during term. And so that is the second one, and why we're doing that through July 31st, because that was David Ward's last day in office. And under the statute, you're to settle with any tax collector who leaves if there's a vacancy during the term. And so that's why you have two of those. Then the third one is, once you've settled with the tax collector on the annual basis, and in the rare occasion when you have the vacancy in office, which we did, you then go to charging the tax collector. And if you, the settlements are in there, but if you go to page page 30, then the next thing on the tax collection calendar is you've got to adopt an order directing the tax collector to collect the taxes charged in the tax records and receipts. And that's always done prior to September 1, as the statute says, and we've also given you that statute. But this, and then this order is specifically right out of the statute. It's spelled out. If you turn the next page, you'll see before delivering the tax receipts to the tax collector in any year, the Board of County Commissioners shall adopt and enter into its minutes an order directing the tax collector to collect the taxes. And then it gives you this specific charge. And So Ms. Wilson has typed that up verbatim, and once you adopt that, then the taxes do create, as you read in here, they create a lien on the property, and he's authorized to use all legal means to collect them. And then the bills can be collected.
Mr. Wood, during the regular meeting, because of the, I won't say the complexity of this, but the importance of it, you share which part of it you feel like you need to, and you and Dave, Alan handle that together.
Right.
I think for public consumption, something as important as taxes, this gives the impression, and it is, of being very important. And so bring some notice to it so that the public might want to go and read that and look it up, at least be
Alright.
very aware of what the tax situation, how it's done, and
All right,
that's good information for all of us.
be happy to do that.
Thank you. And, Ms. Hope will not be here today, and you will handle the amendment.
Right, she's called in sick, and so I'll handle the amendments. Do y'all want to go over them now, or just wait till the meeting? Okay, there's only 6.
Wait.
Okay, and she's given me good notes to go over them.
Okay, other than the, closed session, we have public comments, county manager's comments, board
Wait a
of
minute, we haven't
commissioners'
finished.
comments.
Right. I did have one other, Mr. Chairman, item number 5,
All right,
under new business. You have a listing in here of our capital projects. I believe Commissioner Gurley had made the recommendation that quarterly or monthly, probably quarterly, that we have Milford come in and give you an update on our projects. This is our first stab at that, so if you want a little different format or anything, just let us know. But Milford will be in at 9 to go over this in detail with you and answer any questions you have.
all right. I'll leave the cross that one. Do we need to say anything about the new one that you, with the addition number 6, that's enough to say it already?
I think that's enough said.
All right.
We'll have that on there. I mean, I can go over it now, and actually, Joe, would you like to handle this, because you were the one who asked for this to be added?
Well, I think most of us are aware of this, if I might, Mr. Chairman. I was made aware of this last Monday, in which there was an article in the newspaper, several newspapers, indicating that a bill had been filed by Senator Hagan in the Senate and Congressman Butterfield in the House, designating 2 U.S. highways, and that would be U.S. 64 and US 17 as future interstates. And for some reason, 117, the extension and continuation of I-795, was not in that bill. And this resolution is basically asking that they amend the bill and designate the segment of U.S. Highway 117 from Goldsboro South to its intersection with Interstate 40 as a future interstate highway. It always was our intention to have that bill introduced, or a rider to a bill, an amendment to a bill, but we were waiting for the studies that have, well, actually, the study for the economic study is going to be provided to us this Thursday at our transportation meeting. And while that is going on, there's also the study in regards to the feasibility of how to go about it and design possibilities. So we were waiting for that to happen, and this bill got ahead of us, so we're just simply asking that they amend their bill to include 117. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So just for, we will do this resolution, sign off on it, and then contact them as they been come.
Yes, in fact, what will happen with that, Mr. Keene had asked that once that is passed, that it be sent to him so he can put it on the governor's desk, because we want the governor's involvement on this as well. But also, we'll direct our clerk to also send that to the congressman and the senator and so forth.
That's, I won't know the trail thing.
And Mr. don't you have the cooperation of some other boards, RPO, NPOs that are?
Yes, we've actually, the MPO, Goldsboro MPO, has already passed that resolution. That's already been sent. Thursday, the RPO is actually having that on their agenda to vote on as well. And we're asking for support for surrounding communities and municipalities as well.
As well as the Transportation Committee on Thursday,
Do what now?
as well as the Transportation.
That's
Committee.
correct. In fact, it is on the agenda for the Wayne Transportation Committee on Thursday as well. So we're trying to move expeditiously on this because they are in recess, and we want to have these resolutions on their desk when they go back into session after Labor Day. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wood, is there anything else on this that?
No, sir. The only thing I would suggest is if we have some time, we could go ahead and take care of the closed session now, and that would save us time during the meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I move we go into closed session for the purpose of
Oh, I'm sorry.
Acquisition of property and to discuss the matter with your attorney to preserve attorney-client privilege.
We have a motion on the floor to go into closed session. Any discussion? If not, a show of hands in favor of going into closed session. Unanimously. We're in closed session.
And all of you have a copy of that at your table.
Are there any other adjustments or anything that any commissioner would have an interest in? Having heard none, I expect we've all read the minutes, and I seek my motion to approve those minutes.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
The motion has been made by Mr. Pate. Are there any discussions of those minutes? If not, all in favor, would you please raise your right hand? That's unanimous. The minutes have been, a motion made and approved. Mr. Wood, we're at special recognition.
All right.
I'd like to take the first one.
Mr. Chairman, the first one is Betty Morrison for a retirement plaque, and at this point, I'd like to call on Tim Rogers.
John.
Eddie, we present you with this plaque for your years of service here with the county. Thank you so much for all the dedication you had to the 13 side. And I know those folks over there love you and they miss you. And they tell us that every day that you're not there. But we just want to all thank you for your service and the great job you did.
I do miss them.
I know you do. You go in and speak to the commission.
Here. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry.
There you go.
There you go, that's better. Thank you.
And our next honoree is Peggy Tate. And Aaron, if you would make some comments, please.
I was very pleased to nominate Peggy Tate for the Senior Health Insurance Information Program Southeast Volunteer of the Year Award. That's a mouthful. She deserves it all. I wasn't surprised when Peggy won because Peggy is a very rare person and an exceptional volunteer. Medicare counseling is difficult, it's complicated, and it changes every year. Peggy not only knows her information very well, but it's her attitude that sets her apart. Peggy can counsel people all day long, complicated, difficult, frustrating cases, and I'll say, how'd the day go? And she says, wonderful, I had a great day. And it uplifts me, it uplifts everyone that she works with. She truly deserves this award, and I'm very appreciative to her. And I wanted to present the Southeast Region Volunteer of the Year, Peggy King. Thank you. And I would ask after, just if you could have she'd have 1 minute of your time. We want your audience to know about the Medicare B open enrollment period that's coming up. Very important for all the beneficiaries in the county.
I think one of the best things that any SHIP counselor takes care of is making sure that no senior has to make choices between food and insurance and purchasing the medications each month. That's why every day that I can help seniors is an absolutely wonderful day. Open enrollment is, October 15th until December 7th. There will be counselors on site at the senior center several days.
Yeah, we'll set the date.
Yes, we'll set the dates, and those will be publicized in the paper, and please let everyone know. Come see us. We will help them.
Thank you. Oh, and one last thing, there's something called low-income subsidy. So if
Yes.
somebody is having difficulty affording their drugs, if they're an individual and their income is less than $1,458 a month, and their assets are less than $13,440, and we do not count the house, we do not count the car, we can apply for a subsidy for them that would help pay for their medicines. Their medicines might be $2 each. There might be no deductible, no co-pays. And for married couples, the limits are $1,966 and $26,860. And thank you for letting us do that little commercial. Now, Peggy, Peggy, do you want to do what she?
Thank you very much. Thank you. Come see me. Get away with just a handshake. A good old coworker.
Just for public consumption, she helped keep me straight in the school system over 20 years.
And that was a great job.
Yes. Thank you very much. Oh.
Okay, we're ready to do our service pins now. Marcia,
And those persons who are able to attend and present, you would like for them to come forward to receive their pin? 1 year, Melissa Cox, Social Services. David Dixon, Facility Services. Dana Evans, Health Department. Justin Jones, Information Technology. Joseph Mace, Emergency Medical Services. Ronald Neal, Solid Waste. Jennifer Pierce, Social Services. Richard Pettigrew, Emergency Medical Services. Tiffany Price, Social Services. Martin Cheddar, Library. Taryn Vasquez, Emergency Medical Services. Matthew Wade, Detention Center. Melissa Abbott, Solid Waste. Carolyn Anderson, Social Services. Thomas Huffman, Day Reporting Center. Jessica Kelly, Health Department. Terry Littleton, Facility Services. Anisha McCants, Health Department. Tabitha Quinn, Health Department. Joseph Rogerson, Facility Services. Charles Taylor, Detention Center. Tammy Wilson, Inspections. Edward Worley, Facility Services. Brian Ziegler, Emergency Medical Services. Kendall Lee, Facility Services. that was 1 year. 5 years. Martin McAuliffe, Sheriff's Office. Jonathan Pearson, Detention Center. Michelle Sutton, Social Services. Jessica Walker, Emergency Medical Services. Sandra Barber, Services on Aging. Laura Brantley, Social Services. Travis Cox, Sheriff's Office. Thomas Cushing, Wayne Executive Jetport. Giorgio Christoph, Information Technology. Amber Perry, Social Services. Elizabeth Towery, Health Department. Years. Jeff Sparrow, Solid Waste. Jennifer Goodson, Emergency Medical Services. June Medford, Social Services. Years. Delmas Cox, Solid Waste. Patricia Hare, Day Reporting Center. Linda Wells, Facility Services. Summer Young, 4-H. Years. Nita Hall, Social Services. Michael Reed, Sheriff's Office. Years. Denise Webb, Social Services. Albert Jones, Emergency Medical Services. Alan Jones, Emergency Medical Services. And yes, Alan and Albert are twins. Let's give a hand to all of our employees.
And see, I thought all those folks came to see us today.
We're not that interested.
Oh, yes. Michael and Steve are up there.
Next on our agenda are our appointments. Mr. Gurley?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appointment committee met this morning. We have 4 appointments or reappointments. First one's for the planning board. I'd like to make a motion to appoint Mr. Freeman Hardison.
We have a motion on the floor to appoint Mr. Hardison to the planning board. Are there any discussion? Having heard none, all in favor of Mr. Hardison for the planning board, would you please show your right hand?
The second one is the Latino Council. I'd like to make a motion to reappoint Ms. Michelle Estrada.
You heard a motion to appoint Ms. Michelle Estrada. Are there any discussion? Having heard none, all in favor of Ms. Estrada, please raise your hand.
Next is the Nursing Home Community Advisory Committee. For me, I'd like to make a motion to reappoint Ms. Frida Brock.
We've heard a motion to appoint Ms. Frida Brock. Are there any discussions? Having heard none, all in favor of Ms. Frida Brock, please raise your hand.
Last is the Animal Control Advisory Committee. I'd like to make a motion to appoint Mr. George M. Wolf.
We've heard a motion to appoint Mr. George Wolf. Are there any discussion? Having heard none, all in favor of Mr. Wolf, please raise your hand, right hand.
Okay. In addition, we have one vacancy on the Goldsboro. This person we're recruiting must live outside the Goldsboro city limits, but within the ETJ of Goldsboro. So anybody with any recommendations, please let appointment committee know. And also, we're accepting applications and recommendations for the Wayne County Adult Care Community Advisory Committee to be considered at the September 2nd meeting. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Gurley. That concludes our appointments. We are now at the unfinished business. Mr. Wood?
Mr. Chairman, the next item is a resolution amending the agreement between the County of Wayne and City of Goldsboro, establishing the Goldsboro-Wayne Transportation Authority. As we discussed at the last meeting, we want to make one change to that agreement, and that is to change how the rates, fees, and charges are approved. And essentially, the pertinent section is Section 1, which says the authority shall have the responsibility to recommend changes in rates, fees, or charges for the transportation systems it manages. However, notwithstanding any other provisions of this agreement, no change in any rates, fees, or charges can be made for the Human Services Transportation System, parentheses, rural system, without the written approval of the Wayne County Board of Commissioners. And no change in any rates, fees, or charges can be made for the fixed route transportation system, parentheses, urban system, without the written approval of the Goldsboro City Council. And so essentially what this does is changes it from the Gateway Board having the authority to unilaterally make rate changes to where you have to approve them on our system, and the City of Goldsboro City Council has to approve them on the urban system. And I would recommend approval of this resolution.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Doctor.
I move that, that we accept and approve the resolution amending the agreement between the County of Wayne and the City of Goldsboro establishing the the Goldsboro-Wayne Transportation Authority.
We heard the motion put forth by Mr. Daughtry. Are there any discussions? Having heard none, all in favor of this resolution, would you please show your right hand? It's unanimous. Next on the agenda is our consent agenda, and there's one item there in our work session. There was opportunity to discuss it, but this consent agenda will go as it is unless there's a commissioner who needs, discussion or has a situation with it.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to put on the floor by Mr. Pate that this consent agenda be approved. All in favor, would you please show a right hand? Moving along to new business. We have, several pieces of business that has to do with the tax department. I would like for Mr. Wood to, take the lead in addressing that and handle it as he sees fit.
All right. Mr. Chairman, these three items are all related. The first one is a motion to approve the resolution accepting the tax settlement with the Wayne County Tax Administrator July 1, 2013 through June 30th, 2014. And that is the first resolution that is on page 12 of your packet. And what I'd like to do is ask Alan Lumpkin, our tax administrator, to go through that tax collection settlement with you as far as the numbers. So Alan?
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. It's a pleasure to be here with you this morning. This is basically a snapshot where we were June 30th of this year. We billed last August of 13. We ended up our year June 30th. It doesn't mean we stopped collecting money. It's just a snapshot date in time that the auditors like to sort of have a cutoff date. So that's what this is going to show you today. As required by North Carolina General Statute 105-373, the tax collector must make a report of settlement for the fiscal year 13-14 and prior years. The settlement must be accepted before the tax collector may be charged with the new tax levy. So we got to settle this one first, then we'll put our new one on the books. The settlement must provide a report of diligent efforts to collect unpaid taxes, and we'll show you that a little bit later in the presentation. There's a lot of big numbers here, but this was our 2013-14 levy. It shows the original levy, and it shows the additions and deletions throughout the year we did, and it shows our net at the bottom. On the right-hand side, under total levy, it breaks this out between our regular annual billing and our registered motor vehicles. This is just a partial registered motor vehicles. As you know, we discussed this earlier in the year, we had a change with the way we bill our vehicle values now. It's now billed through the Department of DMV office. And so this is just like a partial year. Usually we can expect around $6 million usually. That's where our usually annual billing is. This year you see the $3,240,753, which is down in the bottom corner. Thank you, Marcia, for pointing that out. The first column in the net levy is $49,690,890. That's our combined levy. That's vehicles, annual billing, personal, real property, everything. Right below that in the red is where we show the uncollected taxes that was left as of June 30th, what we're still trying to collect. And then our current years collected that were actually collected as of June 30th, and then our collection percentage. That 96.85% is our total percentage for everything, including vehicles. The column right next to that breaks it down for the actual real property down at the bottom, Marcia, the $46,450,000. That's what we billed. Right below it, that's the amount that's uncollected as of June 30th. The net amount is right below that. You see 97.27% we collected on that, which is very good. We're actually up from last year. I think we're 97.19 possibly last year, so that's up this year. That's very good. The actual next column is actually good also. This is the registered motor vehicles. And as I mentioned, this is just what we build here in our office. And it really phased out we started in July of last year. We had about 3 months of full billing. It sort of started dwindling off as we transitioned over to the new system. So you can see on there, we ended up at 90.95%. You say that's not quite as good as the other, obviously, but it's better than it has been. And what this new system did, usually we're about 82%. So that's actually better. And what happened in this transition, we had to get those back years paid before they could get their new tag and tax the new way. So this actually helped us in our old collections on that. So it's a very good, and this shows it. This shows the transition right there, 90.95. And is there any questions on these numbers? Anybody have any questions? This slide is basically the same information you just saw. It's just a little bit easier to read. It breaks down the real estate, our annual billing, the motor vehicles, and then combined. It has your same percentages. What we add here is our interest collected. What we collect on any real estate or annual billing, those are due technically by January 5th of each year. They're due September 1st, but they're not delinquent until after January 5th of the following year. If they're not paid by then, the first month, there's a 2% interest added onto that for the first month, and 0.75% interest added for every month thereafter until it's paid. That's on the annual bill, which says real estate. The motor vehicles, that actually changed. It used to be the same thing, but back in 2005 or 6, the state changed that. They changed it from 2% to 5% for the first month. The reason for that, that extra 3% actually went to the state to help build the computer system that now operates the new DMV collection. So it was delinquent tax money that actually paid for that system to be built. They stopped collecting that. We stopped sending that 3% to the state last July. It was the last time we sent a payment because they finished the system. The 5% stayed in place, however, the county gets the full 5% now for that first month, and 3% thereafter when it's not paid. Also, in the DMV system now, if you don't pay on time, renew your tag timely, the 5% and 3/4% is added to not only your registration fee, but the taxes. So that's something new also. So if you don't renew your tag in time, when you get ready to go pay, if you're late, you're gonna pay that percentage on not only your registration fee, but your taxes. So you'll see the interest we collected on the real estate was $100,629. Motor vehicles, $43,000, for a total of $143,686.68. That's the interest rate during the year.
Mr. Chairman, could I inquire and ask a question here? What are the rebates that you've got up here?
Rebates, that's things that happen during the year. Inevitably, we have people, especially businesses, they'll list their taxes every year, their assets, basically their taxes for business personal listing. A lot of these come from corporate offices, and sometime during the year after we bill, they'll realize that a piece of machinery was moved out of the county prior to January 1st. They'll do an amended return. Then we have to take it, actually have to rebate it. We have to take that levy off, it's not included. Also, the exemptions you approved during the year, those senior citizen exemptions, the far deferred values, when that happens during the year after we build, we have to rebuild those, take that money back off, so that's a rebate. Any adjustment to the levy that is the negative amount, that's a rebate. In the same token, on the screen before that, you can see we have some discoveries. We have people that fail to list sometimes. We don't discover that until after we build. We have to go back and actually add those onto the tax base. So we start out with a beginning figure. From July 1st, we bill. Anything happens after that is either a discovery or a rebate. And they sort of all throughout the year, we're doing discoveries or rebates. And that, at the end of the year, we have to account for all of that adjustments to the levy.
He brought another question up, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman. What is a discovery?
A discovery is, say for instance, you purchase a mobile home, or or you build a new house. We did not get that information for whatever reason. Technically, you're supposed to list that every January during the listing period. Whatever reason, we didn't get a permit, we didn't get the information. We send our bills out that July or August. We discover that you come in and say, well, I didn't get my tax bill. We said, well, what have you got? You didn't list it with us. We discover, they said, well, I got a mobile home, and it's sitting at whatever address. We have to go out and actually assess that mobile home, create a new bill for it, and add it to the tax levy. That's a discovery. It's something that we did not know about that actually was physically there January 1st of each year. We have to add to the tax levy.
But you don't have revenue agents within the county trying to discover things that are going. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I have a question, on the rebates. Do you have, is there a way to show the breakdown of that as to what the commissioners approved exemptions, how much of
We
that?
can go back and probably pull basically the rebates due to the senior citizen exemptions and the deferred, yes, sir.
Yeah,
We can
and
get you those
land
numbers.
use.
We can probably get you
exemptions.
those numbers, yes, sir.
I-
Take a little bit of calculating, we can probably do it.
Well, I didn't know if your software would sort of, give it to you real quick, but it'd really be interesting to know.
I'll make a note of that and try to get that for you by the next meeting.
Thank you.
All right. Any questions on this slide? Basically, like I said, just basically the same information, just reported a little bit different and added the interest to it.
And I promise, one last question. And that is, on the rebates, I mean, when you combine it, that's almost $500,000 in
It is.
rebates, so.
And this varies year to year. Sometimes you have Marcia, can you flip back to the screen before
Sure.
that? Sometimes we have to actually, we bill something, we have to release the full bill, which shows up here, and then we actually turn around and discover a different amount. Maybe a less amount, maybe a more amount, but but it still shows up as a rebate. So some of that money you're seeing rebated may be rebilled. If you'll notice up on, let's see, where is it? Discoveries. Across, where it metal lit, the 332,000. That's actually discoveries that the rebates were 508, so there actually was a net loss of 200,000. after you get those two
Okay,
together.
okay.
So it sort of offsets that. Some years you'll see the reverse, you'll see more discoveries than you see rebates. It just depends on, you know, what happens during the year.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, I have one question.
Yes, sir.
I don't think I was gonna ask it, but since my colleagues
Opened up Pandora's
opened
box.
up. Go back to the 5 cents that
5%.
was originally in place, and then the state finished paying for their computer, and the 3 cents wasn't needed any longer. And that came from folk who had,
That's basically what happened was if you had our old vehicle billing, if you did not pay that timely, you were assessed at 5% of the actual amount of the bill the first month. And then
Okay.
3/4% thereafter. The county would keep 2% of that, the 3% would go to the state to fund the new program, this computer software. Once they got that built, and as of last July, we sent our last payment of that 3% to the state, the 5% stayed in place as a penalty. But all 5% comes to the county now. We no longer send any money. And we have another slide up there that actually shows the money. We actually got some money back from the state that was left over once they got the computer system built.
well, help me out about help me out about the part that, if a person forgot to renew their tags, I hear you say that there was a penalty hooked on to that?
Now, let's don't mix the two things up. The
That's
five-
what I want, okay.
Okay, the old way,
Separate
the old
those
way
two.
we used to bill, you would go get your tag at DMV. About 3 months later, we would actually send you a bill for that calendar year, for that year, cycle year that you were renewing your tag. So you're actually getting your bill in arrears. Actually, you already had your tag. We send you a bill 3 months later. You had about 45 days to pay that without being delinquent. If you didn't pay that bill, that's when that 5% was added to it. Now, the new way is when you get your invitation to renew in the mail from DMV, it has your registration fee,
Okay.
has your taxes. And usually you have, say for instance, your tag expires in August. You have till September 15th to renew that tag timely.
All right,
If you don't renew that by the 15th, then they will add 5% not only to the registration fee, but to the tax amount for that first month.
but you may not have that car out on the road driving it.
If you don't renew, that's just the invitation to, it's not a bill, it's just an invitation to renew, saying if you still have this vehicle, take it down to DMV and get your new tag. If you don't have it, you just disregard that notice.
I mean, but you may have it, but you're not driving it on the road, so you may elect that you're not going to renew the tag at that moment. And then the reason I bring this up, it could be forgetfulness or economics.
True.
And if it's economics, the person has been penalized because he may not have had the money to go and renew the tag at that time.
That's possible. And the thing is, it depends on how long he lets it sit there. Say, for instance, it's right now, he does not renew that tag. You have what we call an unlicensed vehicle. If that stays that way through next January, you're supposed to list that with our tax office as an
Right.
untagged vehicle, and you
Right.
pay that way.
Right.
So you still have to pay tax on that vehicle, whether you're driving or not, as long as you own that vehicle.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
That brings up another question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Is there a certain age of a vehicle that there are no taxes?
No, sir, I'm afraid not. Now, what does happen is that we have vehicles, if the bill gets below $5, it used to in our system, we didn't bill anything below $5. DMV does bill anything, if it's $1 or whatever. So as long as there's value on that vehicle, you will get a bill for it. Maybe $1, maybe 50 cents possibly, as long as there's value on that vehicle. And we have a residual value. If the vehicle's running, if it's in running condition, there will be a value on it, yes, sir, as long as it's being on the road, it's running. Now, now, we get to a sticky point if the vehicle gets over 35 years old, it's considered an antique.
Right.
Now, in that case, if it's been restored, then that value actually goes up.
Right.
If it has not been done anything to, there's a residual value we do. And say, for instance, you don't renew the tag, like Mr. Cromartie said, and you just have an unlicensed vehicle sitting in your yard, it's not running.
Right.
We still put a residual value on it, but you will not be building our system because we don't bill anything under $5 on a vehicle value.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
That brings up an interesting point, though, because if you're depending upon the state through their registration process to bill taxes, and they don't renew the tag, how do you know to send a bill to that owner of that property?
Unlicensed vehicle?
Unlicensed, how do you know that?
The system actually has a report in there, it's called a gap billing report. And they basically send us a report each month showing people that did not renew their tag.
Right.
So we actually get a report on those, and we check those in January when people list. We'll check that against people that did list, and then we'll have a discovery potentially if they did not list that vehicle.
So is your intention to actually bill them in January if they did not renew their license? You're gonna bill them for the value of those vehicles that are not licensed.
If they're not licensed,
Is
if
that
they still have the vehicle. If they still, no, in most cases, people, it's very rare that people just keep the vehicle and just take the tag off and leave it in the yard or whatever, unless it's older when they're working on something like that. Some people will not keep those vehicles, but if they keep it and it's sitting in the yard, we will bill it to them as an unlicensed vehicle through our system, not the DMV system, until that tag is put back on the road. If they license it later on, and then put it back on the road and they go through that system, then they actually pay when they put the tag back on the vehicle through DMV.
Well, and the reason I say that, I recall an article that was in the News and Observer some months back stating that there were a lot of vehicles they went through a parking lot, and there were a lot of vehicles that had expired tags on it. And if people are not renewing it, because all of a sudden that bill is $600 and some odd and they're not renewing it, and they don't renew it, then basically all they're facing is basically a penalty for having an improperly registered vehicle.
A potential ticket.
So that's about $100. So they may be playing a cat and mouse game here of actually being caught, is what I'm saying. And if you're not going to bill them for those property taxes, there could be a decline. In fact, I think Wake County was trying to say in that article there was a decline for them. So we've got to be careful that we are in fact issuing a tax bill to those people that do not renew their registration.
That's correct. I did talk to Marcus Kenwright, who's actually administrator in Wake County. That article was written early on when the system was just transitioning. He has indicated to me in the last month or so, his figures are back up to where they're supposed to be. So people, it took a transition period, I think, people to get used to the system. And like you say, it is sticker shock. When you're used to not paying right up front, when you have to pay your registration fee and taxes, you're not used to have to pay everything at one time. It can be sticker shock, it really can. And people chose to, put it off a little bit. And unfortunately now I have a habit of looking at people's license tag to see if it's actually out of date or not.
Well,
I can't help it. I mean, I just naturally look and say, well,
I'm just hoping we have procedures in place to make sure we are
do.
properly billed.
We
Okay,
do,
thank you,
yes,
sir.
sir.
Thank
Thank
you, Chair.
Marcia, next one. And we just talked about that one. Let's go to that one. This is the prior years. This is basically 2004 to 2012, and basically what it is, we cannot enforce collections beyond 10 years. If somebody chooses to walk in and pay a bill that was from the year 2000, we will accept the money. We cannot enforce collections. We cannot garnish wages or attach bank accounts, anything like that. So we don't actually track those older bills. We only track what we actually can enforce, and that's what the auditors actually audit is a 10-year cycle. That's what these numbers here are. We started out last July 1st with an outstanding balance of $3.9 million. We have some rebates in those. The actual total levy was 3.8, and then we actually collected 1.1 during the year on those back taxes, which left outstanding balance of 2.6 million over a 10-year period. And the same thing with motor vehicles. We started out with 2.3. We had some rebates in that. A lot of our rebates in motor vehicles, I want to explain that too. A lot of those are military personnel. If they are a active duty military person, a non-resident of North Carolina, they can actually be exempted from personal property tax, which includes vehicles. In other words, they're supposed to list those and pay in their own home state. So as long as they come into us, bring an LES, leave an earnest statement showing their legal home of residence in some other state, we can actually rebate those bills, and they're not liable for those bills for personal property, which includes mobile homes, boats, vehicles. So they don't have to pay that. They actually are not liable for those taxes. So a lot of times we don't find that out until they were actually after billed. They get the bill, they come in, they say, I'm military, they provide the documentation, we actually have to release those bills. So that's what most of those rebates in the vehicle you're looking at.
Would they have to list those in the state where
They're supposed to.
So
yeah.
are you asking for proof that they have them listed?
We're not allowed to do that. That's basically up to the state to collect those taxes.
Really?
Yes, sir. All we know is we just can't bill them here, but we can. In some states really don't have a tax like that. They don't have a listing period. Some states do it differently. They'd have a one-time deal. When you get a vehicle, you pay one time up front, and that's it. You don't renew. You don't pay an annual tax, property tax. Different states are very different. So we don't know what state it is. So we're not allowed to go out and run down checks, see if they paid in New Jersey or Florida or Texas, whatever. We just know we can't actually bill them here, and that's actually a federal law that actually governs that part of it. So the combined, basically we got $4.2 billion of outstanding taxes over a 10-year period, which actually sounds like a lot of money, but when you think about probably that total bill over those 10 years is probably about $700 million. It's really not a very high percentage. A lot of those, what you see there, will be bankruptcies where we're not allowed to enforce collections when people are going through bankruptcies and stuff like that. Some of them are air property, which we will actually eventually, be working through going to foreclosure potentially. We don't want to foreclose, that's our last resort. And we try to collect those through garnishments and other ways, but sometimes we are forced to do foreclosures, which we'll show in a later slide. And this is our back year interest collected from 2004, 2012. During the fiscal year 13-14, $269,000, I wish it was a million. That's our interest collected there for our back year taxes. Any questions on this one? Yes, sir.
Is there anything that this board can do to assist you in improving our collections?
At this point, most of our stuff is governed by state statutes, and it's a pretty much drawn-out process in some cases. I'll show you some delinquent stuff in just a minute, what we are doing, which we've done a tremendous amount on our delinquent stuff. But at this point, I don't really think there's anything we can do to make this any better. I mean, I think we're pretty much doing what we're allowed to do by law right now, for the most part. I mean, and the only avenue we have next would be foreclosure to increase that action, which we can do that if we need to. But like I said, that's usually our last resort, because really the county is not in the real estate business. We don't want to have the property, but we do want the people to pay the taxes. So inevitably it is a necessity sometimes just to get that process done and get it back on the tax books eventually.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, registered motor vehicles, we've already talked about this a little bit, but this was the last year of collecting registered motor vehicle taxes in arrears. With the implementation of the tax and tag program, the tax office will no longer have a traditional levy for registered motor vehicles. Like we discussed, it's now handled through DMV when you renew your tag. During the 13-14 fiscal year, the county received a one-time increase in motor vehicle revenue due to the additional 4 months of collections attributable to switching to the new system. 6 months were collected in arrears, and 10 months were collected at the time of registration. Pam Holt, Ms. Holt and Mr. Wood also, we talked about this during the budget process. You basically got a 4-month windfall this year only because of the change of the cycle. Whereas, like I said, we used to collect in arrears after 3 months or 4 months afterwards. They changed that to where you actually pay when you actually renew the tag, which left a 4-month overlap. And so that's what we had a one-time, some money came in for that for a one-time deal. Additionally, the county received a distribution of $163,402 from the remaining interest money left over for the implementation of the tax and tag program. This is what I was talking about, that 5% interest we stopped collecting. When all was said and done, the actual project was complete, they had money left over at the state level. They actually sent money back to all the 100 counties, depending on basically, I think they did a proration based on the money you had sent in. So basically, we got $163,000 that was leftover money from that pot of money. Any questions on that? Okay, this is a new vehicle system. We started that in September 1st of last year. As you can see, we got a much better collection rate. This is very good. It's working. The system is working now. Like I said, it was like 82%. You saw 90% on the other slide. This is 98.52%. That's an excellent collection rate.
Alan, if I could
Yes, sir.
interject also, I just wanted to point out that at the time of doing the budget, we were a little unsure as to what percentage on collections to use, because this was totally new territory. But we did look at what some other states have done when they went to this type of system. So we've budgeted at 98%. So I feel very good looking at this number, and I just want to point that out to you. And I give David and Alan a lot of credit on that for doing that research.
Thank you, sir. And again, this is starting in September, and this is a new cycle. What we're billing, we had 4.1 million that we've collected during this period from September through June 30th. And we are looking forward to this to be, we had some kinks to start with. We had to work through some lot of issues, but it's really, the system is working. It's doing what it should have done. What was happening in the past, when you got your tag, and we billed you 3 months later, people had no incentive to come in and pay their taxes until the next year. We would actually put a block on their vehicle so they could not get their tag next year. So that's why it was just taking so long for people to come in and pay. They were not forced to do this. They just put it off until next year they would come pay last year's bill to get this year's registration. And it was always just a habitual cycle like that. This has actually helped that. It's actually cleaned it up. It's very good. It's a very good system. Any questions about the new vehicle system? Enforcement measures. This is what Mr. Daugherty, this is where we're at. This is our enforced collections actions. As you can see, our wage garnishments, we increased those, and a lot of you'll actually see this number starting to go down there, 'cause a lot of these are vehicle garnishments. So since we're not collecting those anymore, you will see these numbers drop some. But we did 11,407 wage garnishments. And what happens with a wage garnishment, if you're employed, we can require your employer to pay you 10% of your gross salary each month to us, or every pay period, to pay off any delinquent taxes we have. We send those off officially to the employer. They're required by law to deduct up to 10% of the amount of your gross salary to send to us each month or bi-weekly, how you get paid for those. Bank account levies, we can actually have the authority to attach your bank account for any delinquent taxes. You can see we actually had some of those this year also. We can do rent attachments. What that is, that's a little harder to do. If you own an apartment complex and you do not pay your taxes, we can actually go back and actually have your tenants send the rent money to us to pay those taxes. Now, that doesn't work very well because, unfortunately, we have the landowner gets wise to this and they threaten the tenants that if they don't give them their money, they'll evict them and stuff like that. So that one we don't use a whole lot because we don't want the tenants to be penalized for doing something like that. Now, again, that's a state statute, so we don't do that one very often. Foreclosures to attorneys, that's what we send those to the foreclosure, for actually foreclosure. And you see those are actually down some during 2013-14. Like I mentioned, those are last resort for us. We don't like to foreclose on people. We don't like to try to put people out of their homes. We try to work with them any way we can. We set up payment arrangements or anything like that first. So this is our last resort.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
this happens to be my little. And you know why I'm asking this question. Yeah, and I certainly don't want to put people out of their homes, but when those homes, whether it be a Mazda or whatever, are dilapidated, I mean, the roof's caved in and all that, how long are we going to wait before we do take action? When you got neighbors complaining and it's affecting their property values and that kind of thing. Can you just talk about that just a little bit?
That would actually be, I mean, if y'all would like to set some kind of guidance for us in the tax office, you can set some kind of time if you'd like to do that. We can handle it on a one-on-one case basis, or we can actually set a guideline saying a certain amount of time. It'll give people a chance to clean it up or do whatever, pay the taxes. But right now, we have no set time. A lot of times, those particular, unfortunately, in the big scheme of the tax office, usually they're maybe manufactured homes, something like that. It's not a big amount of money actually owed taxes.
Right.
It's more of a hindrance on the side where, like you said, you have neighbors, they have the yards grown up. The one particular that you brought to my attention, the yard's grown up, the neighbors are complaining. It's a terrible, I mean, because basically you have infestations once that yard gets grown up for neighbors and stuff. It's just a terrible situation. So I don't know if this is something we should handle through the tax avenue or if there's other ordinances, something we could put in place, or I'm not really sure
Well,
about
I've
that.
spoken both to the county manager and the council about this, and, you know, I just like
Yeah,
to see something happen. We need to make.
It really needs to be handled through code enforcement,
Okay.
is where that should be handled, and that's what we're looking at.
Okay.
Another thing, unfortunately, when you're dealing with manufactured homes sometime, unfortunately, those are registered through DMV like a motor vehicle. A lot of times that home will change hands 3 or 4 times and nobody will take the time to go to re-register that vehicle, so we really don't know who the current owner is sometimes. And it's very hard to track that down, because of that. So it is. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Are you saying there is no time limit in regards to foreclosure? So if you, and like you said, that's a last resort, but once you decide to go with the foreclosure, are you saying that there's no time limit for that to actually be adjudicated?
It's not just a time limit. There's a lot of factors go into it. The amount of money due. We actually go out and look at the property to see if it's something, is it a liability to the county if we were to take this property back in? Is there contamination or something possibly? Do we want the property back as on the books as a county property? And then time would be a factor in that also. So it's a combination of factors that go into whether we are actually going to send this for foreclosure or not.
Well, let me go further then. Going back to 2012 and 13, where 182 properties, foreclosures to attorney, out of those 182, how many did we actually go through the process and actually foreclosed on?
I don't have an exact number, but probably the majority of them. What happens is once we turn up to the attorney, we're actually out of it. They have to deal directly with the attorney when they're paying the properties. And sometimes people will come in and they'll come up with the money, they'll pay it, and it'll be dismissed.
Sure.
I would say that probably out of that number, I would estimate probably 70–75% are actually going through the foreclosure process. Other ones actually come up and step up and make an arrangement or actually pay the
So about 75% of 182 properties were actually foreclosed on by the county?
Probably so. I mean, I can get you an exact number of what actually ended up with the county. I'll be glad to do that.
Is that fair? A fair number of representation?
I'm sorry, I can't answer that. Somebody else in my office handles that.
Mr. Will Spicer actually does
Oh,
those
okay.
for us.
It's just hard for me to imagine that we auctioned off 125 properties last year for delinquent taxes.
Well, some of them are paid, and as Alan said, some of them would be paid after the action is filed.
But he said about 75% of them actually went to
Now, The
foreclosure.
75% actually went to them as foreclosure.
Oh, to them
Not
as
all went through the whole
foreclosure.
process.
Oh, okay. So how many actually, you don't know how many?
I don't know, but I can get you, I can find out.
Please
for you.
find out.
I sure can.
I mean, I'd hate to see that we are actually foreclosing on 125 properties that, that we actually are taking in, because I don't think we put up 125 properties for sale.
We did not. And
So-
I could check with
It
Mr.
probably would be a handful, not very many anyway, I would imagine. But you could give
I'll
us-
check with Ms. Woods also. She actually keeps a running list of those that we actually have on the books that we foreclosed on.
Okay, thank you.
Now, when it's foreclosed, that doesn't mean that the county is gonna buy it in, because if you wanted to go in and pay what the taxes were, you pay.
Yeah, in some cases, we have actual
You know,
rental.
It's a foreclosure sale.
Right, but how many actually went through a sale?
That's what I'm
we
find out.
can get that information, but the county did not buy everything.
Understand.
for
In other words, when it goes, I assume the sheriff actually has a sale, or somebody has a sale, and, or somebody could actually go in at that point and say, okay, if the delinquent taxes were $4,000, pay $4,000, and the property would be transferred over to them.
Right, and then there's a 10-day period that somebody can
Sure,
upset them.
sure. Okay, if you would, let me know. I appreciate it.
Sure will.
Just as a matter of interest, I think, unless it's less old sheet. I think I saw on the wall down there this morning, there's probably might be coming up for sale down there. Somebody might be getting something auctioned off today. I saw a piece of paper on the wall down there, so, be interested to watch that.
Maybe. March next. Debt set-off, this is another avenue we have for delinquent collections. Wayne County utilizes the NC Debt Set-Off Program that assists local governments with the recovery of any delinquent debts by offsetting debtors' North Carolina state tax refunds and educational lottery winnings. During 2013-14, we collected from 2,126 debtors and received collections in the amount of $364,744 for delinquent taxes. So we can actually send our delinquent tax roll to the state. If you're due a state refund, then we actually can attach that money to pay off delinquent tax. Also, lottery winnings over $600 can actually be attached also. And that actually goes to the state. There's a clearinghouse that handles that through the state with us, for us. So that's another good avenue for collections. Okay, that basically ends our 13-14 settlement, and I think we need a motion on that one, Marcia, is that correct?
Yes, we do.
To accept that one?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I make a motion that we accept the resolution accepting the tax settlement with Wayne County Tax Administrator from July the 1st through the 31st of 2014. Isn't that the first one?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay.
Members, we have heard the discussion and a motion is on the floor for the resolution, the motion just read, the discussion just heard. Are there any discussions over there? Any other discussions? Haven't heard none. All in favor of this particular motion, would you please raise your right hand?
Mr. Chairman, if I could, I believe it's a little after 10, so we probably need to take a break and do the public comment section.
Thank you. We are now ready for the public comment section. And,
Tom Drew, P.O. Box, just a second. Tom Drew, P.O. Box 587, Goldsboro, North Carolina, 27533. That we ended on that word resolutions. Mr. Bell, you were on board. The only one left on board
from February of '03 when the Board of Commissioners passed a resolution to support the troops. And I know this board's kind of resolute about not answering questions, but I asked Mr. Bell, has that resolution ever been voided or expired?
No.
Okay. The mission did change from weapons of mass destruction to democratization. And they say think globally, act locally. To secure democracy in Iraq and Afghanistan, I must secure it in my backyard. And I went on a long journey to the land of my birth, 43 years away, strong in democracy then. I feel exasperating conditions there. I've left my breath there. The News Argus has two new editorialists. Patrick Gannon, there's no contact information for him. I think he took over Scott Mooneyham. And David Shiverman. All it says here is he's the executive editor of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. He's also vice president. And hopefully y'all have my email from the 15th seeking from Mr. David Shiverman some understanding of some conditions in Pittsburgh, of which, see here. There's an ad submitted to the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette Classifieds. The Car Post report, 700 return in. Open letter to all current foreign exchange students at Carnegie Mellon University. Will not trade democracy for all the tea in India and China, though we'll trade 5 pounds of American tea on hand for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette's executive editor and vice president's dated and signed answers to 5 questions about democracy, or his statement dated and signed that these questions are not relevant. Questions will be available, and I was going to give a location, at Carnegie Mellon University, and I was going to give a time. Questions and status of reply will be published in the Tartan's next publication. To justice, mercy, prosperity, peace, long lives, and long lives, my name. P.S. In '73, as a guest student at Carnegie Mellon University, for one evening, I gained insight to a solution to a most perplexing problem of democracy that exists till this day. Wish to return that favor with a different flavor. Currently, I'm banned arbitrarily, capriciously, indefinitely, without benefit of appeal from Carnegie Mellon University. That's ongoing research. That this is happening right under David Shiverman's nose, that he's in our paper with no oversight. There's no way to present opinions, questions, suggestions about his writings. I want him to understand the conditions that he is, as a journalist, is being associated with. But to do that, I need to understand his understanding of democracy. On the 16th, I did email to him a request. Has he reviewed this? And will there be a reply? And there was no reply as of last night. So he needs to understand the reckless journalism that his column is being published in. The Goldsboro News Argus. These are findings of fact to include in the contesting of the elections in 2014. They say a road to a friend of free speech and democracy is never long, but when there ain't nobody home, it's 10 times as long back. Now I left my breath there. Okay.
Do we have any other individual to address the public or make a comment this morning? Having observed none, this section is closed or finished.
Mr. Chairman, as we mentioned, Mr. Wood mentioned earlier, not only did we have to do our regular annual settlement this year, we had to do one more settlement, which was when David retired, effective July 31st. Statutes require we actually do another settlement, basically changing from him to me as collector and authorizing me to collect those delinquent taxes. So this is as of July 31st. It's basically the same information that we saw before with another month added to it. So we'll just go through this right now. Basically, it just says, as required by North Carolina General Statute 105-373, when the tax collector leaves office, he shall, upon his last day of office, make full and complete settlement for all taxes current and delinquent in his hands for collection. He shall deliver the tax records, tax receipts, tax sale certificates, and all accounts to his successor in office. And basically, this is the same information we saw before, it just combines the 13-14 levy with the 2004 to 2012. And plus it puts on there what we collected the month of July. So these are just updated figures that you saw before, same numbers, just 1 month added to it. Have any questions on these, anybody?
Yes, sir.
And again, this is just a different way it was stated, just like the slides before. Breaks down the real estate and the motor vehicles as a combined rate. It shows the interest we collected during the month of July.
I suppose, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
my question is, that's from 2004 to 2013?
It's 2004 through July 3rd. Go back, Marshall, let's look at this. That right there is from 4 through 13. That's basically what our beginning levy, when it says beginning levy, that means what was outstanding.
Okay.
Not the whole levy,
So-
The other thing you need to remember is, you've only levied taxes for calendar year 13. Where it gets confusing is you're used to dealing in fiscal years. On the tax calendar, what he's collecting right now is calendar year 13 taxes. We're just now sending out tax year 14.
Correct.
Okay, that's where it gets a little confusing.
And another thing, one difference, what you're saying, that 50 million, that is basically the levy for 13 plus, it's not total levy for 14, 04 through 13. That'd be like a $700 million figure if that was it.
Right.
So this is basically what we billed for 13, and then what we collected from 04 through the current. Bottom line is what you have left over to collect is $3.9 million on the real estate, 1.8 on the vehicle, and 5.7 total.
So the beginning levy would be those current taxes and those that were
That were delinquent,
delinquent.
correct, yes, sir.
Okay.
Because that's all he's bringing forward.
Okay.
That's correct, yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And again, this, the next screen was the same information we saw before. Before the tax receipts for the current year are delivered to the tax collector, he shall have made his annual settlement for all taxes in his hands and collections. Let's see. The settlement above represents the total levy due for real estate and motor vehicle taxes charged to David Ward, Wayne County Tax Administrator through July 31st, 2014. These amounts shall be delivered and charged to incoming Wayne County Tax Administrator Alan Lumpkin as of August 1st, 2014. As provided in General Statute 105-321, upon order of the governing body, the 2014 current year tax receipts shall be delivered to the tax collector on or before the first day of September. So that's what we're going to do next. Right now, we're just handling the settlement from David to me, the transition period on July 31st. And basically, that is the settlement, again, as of July 31st, transitioning from David's retirement to me, effective August the 1st. And we need a resolution on that next to accept those, basically, give me authority to collect those taxes.
We've heard the discussion. What's the pleasure?
Motion to approve.
I'm sorry.
That's a motion to approve here.
Motion to approve by Mr. Bell. Are there any other discussions? Having heard none, all in favor of this motion, please raise your right hand. Unanimous?
Thank you, sir. And our last order of business is we're actually billing our 2014 levy, as Mr. Wood said, and we need your approval for me to go out and collect those taxes. We got some numbers for you to look at here. You got that slide, Marshall? Go with it. This should be a spreadsheet, not really. Okay. Did they have it in their?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah,
Okay.
we
All right, you do have.
Schedule A.
Okay. All right, that is our figures for our annual billing. Now, I want to bring this to your attention. We do collect for 6 of the 7 municipalities in Wayne County. We do not collect the annual taxes for Walnut Creek. They still bill their own taxes, but we do collect for 6 of the 7. So these are the numbers. I would like to bring to your attention too, under Wayne County, this is our annual billing as of right now. we will be adding to that levy. We do our public service billing. We're a public service, let me go ahead and brief you on that a little bit. I think we've talked about this. Public service accounts are such as things as Duke Energy, railroads, Bell South, AT&T. Those are handled through the Department of Revenue. Those values actually go to the Department of Revenue first. They certify those values and they send them out to all 100 counties. We receive those usually end of August, 1st of September, and we do a subsequent billing for those. That will add about $4 million to your tax base. So the $42 million you see right here was just our annual local billing. We'll add about $4 more million to that to bring it up to about almost $47 million. But that'll be done usually sometime in September. We send those out. But those are handled a little different because they are public service companies.
Yeah,
We
may I
also
ask-
just
May I ask a question? So the state's gonna send out those
yes, sir.
levies to them, let them know that.
No, they actually, what happened, the companies actually list all their property values with the state of North Carolina, with the Department of Revenue. The Department of Revenue goes through those figures and verifies those values and agree, say yes or no, we agree with these values. Once they certify the values, they send those to us. We actually do the billing here in-house, and we
Okay,
send the
I
bills out.
understand. I just wanted
Yes, sir.
the process.
Mr. Chairman, I had a question here.
Yes, Mr.
Yeah, in that Wayne County is billing the taxes for these municipalities, do we charge them for that service?
There is a fee, I think it is 1.75% of what we collect.
Who establishes that fee?
That was set by the board years ago. We have actually have resolutions on file from, I think, probably back in the 70s for Goldsboro.
Yeah, it's a decision of this board, the Board of Commissioners.
But the last time that was reviewed, it was back in the 70s?
Well, these other counties came on fairly recently. We just started collecting probably in the last 4 to 5 years for Eureka and Seven Springs, and those were just established in accordance with what we were doing for the other municipalities. So,
What is the state charging for the collection of taxes to the motor vehicle?
I'm not sure.
I don't recall, but we can find that
It's not a
out.
set rate, I
Could we
don't think.
review that?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Well, I mean, our costs undoubtedly since the 70s has gone up, and I'm just wondering whether or not.
Well, it's a percentage of collection, so in other words, if the collection amount has gone up, then our fee has actually gone up, so it's like a 4.75% amount collected. So we collect a whole lot more now than we did back in the 70s, I'm sure, so
Right.
it's basically gone up with inflation and the valuations and everything. The amount we collect now is a whole lot more than back then, so it's a
Yeah.
percentage of what we collect.
Yeah, and so as the value of the amount of taxes goes up, the amount you collected, I would tell you that 1.75 is a reasonable rate.
All right.
It's usually somewhere between 1% and 3%, but 3 is on the high side. Most people are somewhere around 2%, 2.25. So 1.75 is not out of the ordinary.
And I also tell you too, on the old vehicle way, it was statutorily, the state basically set a 1.5% collection rate that we could charge municipalities for collecting vehicle values on the old way. That was the old percentage, 1.5%. And that was across all 100 counties assessed that.
I will say this, it makes an awful lot of sense for municipalities to have the county do their taxes. It's for a number of reasons. One, if you think about the cost of just preparing and sending out separate tax bills. But the real savings to them is on the delinquencies, because where you spend a lot of your time is on the 5% who don't pay voluntarily. That's where the real time is spent. Most people, you send a bill, the deadline comes, they pay it, you process it, that's the end of it. Where you spend the bulk of the staff's time is on that 5%. And if you think about it, typically if people aren't paying their city taxes, they probably aren't paying their county taxes. And also, in order for them to do a tax sale, they got to make sure that they've got all of the liens on it. You can't sell property with other tax liens on it. So typically the tax lien sales need to be done together ideally. So if we're doing the billing and collection and delinquent collection for them, it's a cost savings to them, but it's also a great deal of aggravation saved, particularly if you have to go all the way to a point of foreclosure or things like that. So I just wanted to mention that for those who we're not doing the collection for, they may want to think about that, because when you look at the cost, it's not just the cost of sending out a tax bill and getting it back voluntarily. The real cost is in that 4 to 5% that don't pay voluntarily.
Well, and my point too, I just want to make sure that we're being compensated
Right.
for our costs.
That's right.
That's all. So I'd like us to look at that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Also, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Parker just asked me, reminded me, I may want to discuss the public service companies again. What happens with those is, like I said, the values do come from the state each year. Statutorily, on the 4th and 7th year of your revaluation, when they list those values, they're assessed at 100% valuation. If our sales ratio drops below 90% on that 4th or 7th year, they can actually adjust their values down to whatever percent our sales ratio is. And you may ask, what is the sales ratio? Each year, we actually have to compare what's market value, what our tax value is compared to what stuff is actually selling for. We do a study each year for the state, turn it into the state. Again, it's comparing our tax value with what stuff is actually selling for. Right now, our latest one we did was, I think we're at 100.22%, don't quote me on that, but it's somewhere right in that ballpark. So we did our revaluation in 2011. We've not seen a big fluctuation. Now, it fluctuates a little bit, but we're right at where we were in 2011, which tells us our market has not gone up, hasn't gone down, it's sort of hovering. So right now, we're fine, and our 4th year will actually be this upcoming year, so there will probably be no adjustment on the public service rates. If we had to drop below 90% on that sales ratio, in other words, if our market had took off again, and our tax values are set as of 2011, if market values were continue to climb, and we hit below that 90% mark, the public service values could actually be adjusted down to whatever percent we were, 88, 87, whatever percent we were. So that is something to keep in mind. Since this economy crashed back in 08, 09, we haven't really had that problem. Before that, we've adjusted ours on the 4th and 7th year most every time in previous revaluations because our market was growing at a certain rate. That's just for informational purposes only. And any more questions about our value we build this year, valuations? If not, I think we need a motion to approve those and actually give me permission to go out and collect those taxes.
Gentlemen, you've heard a request from Mr. Lumpkin that he needs a motion to direct him to go out and collect the taxes.
Mr. Chairman, I would not want to delay his speedy collection of taxes, so I hereby move that we authorize and direct the Wayne County Tax Collector to collect the taxes charged in the tax records and receipts.
The motion is on the floor. Are there any other discussions? Haven't heard none. I would like to show of hands. All in favor? Right. Show of hands. Unanimous.
Thank you very much, sir. And those two questions we have from Mr. May and Mr. Stoddard, I'll work on those for you and get an answer for you on those.
Let's don't I'd like to thank you for coming in this morning and giving a very comprehensive analysis of the whole tax structure. I hope this will be a benefit to the public as they see this and understand more. Thank you, Mr. Wood.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
And I would just like to say that a 97.7 or 97.27% collection rate remember that's in the first 12 months is a very good collection rate. Ranks very well among the state. And now that the vehicle taxes will be up to somewhere in the 98.5% collection rate, we'll be doing a very good job of getting our revenues.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
May I ask for a 5-minute recess?
Yes. We're in recess for 5 minutes. We are out of recess. We are out of recess back into our formal meeting. Our next item on the agenda is the budget amendments. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me back up just a moment. Mr. Gurley is going to handle a small detail that is very important this morning to Mr. Gurley. Yes, okay. Play on words, boys. That's all.
Say a short detail.
Yeah, she sounded terrible. She called me around 6:45.
Gentlemen, this morning we got two important guests with us. I'd like to recognize them as come up, Tyler Power and Hunter Power, as both gentlemen come up. Hunter is a rising junior at Rosewood High School, and Tyler's a rising sophomore at ECU in Greenville. Hunter is working towards his Eagle Scout, and this is one of his projects to come by and observe a county commissioner meeting. We're certainly glad to have him here. And of course, Brother Tyler already has his Eagle Scout. And boys, we're glad you're here today. And on behalf of Wayne County Board of Commissioners, lapel pins, so whenever I see you on church next Sunday, I hope you have it with you, okay?
Oh, okay, yeah.
All right, you guys want to say anything, you're welcome to.
It's a very interesting meeting. And, yeah, it's good to see that everything's being run fluidly in top office. So it's pretty good to know. Thanks for the opinions.
Go ahead and shake the guys in.
You can definitely tell you two are brothers.
Thank you, Mr. Gurley, for handling that very important detail in those young men's lives. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr.
this brings up an interesting point. Did we have a representative from Wayne County at the youth?
Yes, we did.
Did we?
His name is Christopher Finch. He happens to be a member of 4-H Roto Raptors,
Yes.
and he came with his equipment to our board meeting that time.
All right, and
I
how,
invited him back again.
and how did he go about being designated for that?
He was in a 4-H organization.
Great, and they make that selection. Okay. Well, I'm glad we had a representative. I wasn't aware of that. And hopefully next year, I'll know who that is so I can see him out and shake his hand. Thank you so much.
Well, may I add anything to that?
Absolutely.
As one point of privilege, I would like to say that Ms. Marcia and I happened to have breakfast with the young man the other morning. And I had a picture taken with him.
Well, good, good. You met him, I did.
I just wanted I want to take an opportunity.
You need to get that
To
picture,
rub it in,
you need to
huh?
get that picture put on the website, you can talk more.
Listen, I gotta learn how to get all that done. Put that picture in more than one place.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Absolutely. We are now at the budget amendment section.
Okay. Pam Holt is a little under the weather this morning, so she asked me to handle the budget amendments for her. The first one is actually a decrease of $884, and that is from the Law Enforcement Separation Allowance Reserve. So that's the use of that fund balance is being decreased, and so that's basically what that one is. Anybody have any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I move adoption of budget amendment number 62.
You heard a motion for the adoption of budget number 62. Are there any discussion?
Just a question.
Yeah.
That money is restricted for that anyway, right?
Right, it's strictly for the separation allowance that we pay in for
Okay,
those employees. Those are law enforcement officers who get a 5% separation allowance.
thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of budget amendment number 62, raise your hand. Right hand, please.
So the next one is, as you see on the reasons, is to cover expenditures for fiscal year 14-15. We're reappropriating the balance of special adoption funds. These are monies that come into DSS for adoptions, and so they're earmarked specifically for that. Consequently, when they're not spent out in the prior year, we carry those forward to the next year, and that's what this is doing, is reappropriating them.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt budget amendment number 65.
Heard a motion to adopt budget number 65. Are there any discussions? Having heard none, may I see a raise our right hand? Unanimous? Mr. Wood?
The next one is coming from Aaron McAuliffe, and what this is ECC Family Caregivers Program. They want to do 15,500 of vouchers. The Family Caregivers Program, we'll get money from the COG for that of $10,166. So to make up the difference, Erin is decreasing some of the line items in her budget, and you see what those are, primarily salary and fringe benefits related to that.
You've heard the budget number 67. What's the pleasure, Joe?
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Mayo to approve. Are there any other discussions? Having heard none, may I see a show of your right hand? Unanimous.
Mr. Chairman, the next one, if you recall, at the last meeting, we talked about moving the IT offices over to the house on North Herman Street. And what this is to do the fiber for it and also 810 Pooh Street. And so basically what we're doing is taking some of the maintenance and repair money for equipment from facilities and reallocating that as capital outlay infrastructure for the fiber for this.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Motion's on the floor to approve budget number 68. Are there any other discussions?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman. Is Benchmark, is that by contract or by bid?
Contract.
Contract.
Yeah.
That's all, thank you.
Any other discussion, gentlemen? Having heard none, I would request a vote, right hand to approve. Mr. Wood?
The next one is, as you recall at the last meeting, the sheriff talked about wanting to hire someone who had a great deal of experience in the fingerprinting and had worked previously with the state in that regard. This is simply to appropriate the money for that from the fingerprint funds. So it's not an additional position, it's that position.
Hear the explanation for budget item number 71. What's your pleasure, gentlemen?
Motion to approve.
Motion's on the floor to approve. Are there any other discussions? Haven't heard none, I raise your right hand. Approved. Unanimous.
This next one is to increase the revenues by $96,245. This is for the NCDOT Highway 70 and 795 studies. The money was not received last year, so it's being reallocated this year. And that drops the use of fund balance by $81,245.46.
I move adoption, Mr. Chairman.
The motion is on the floor to adopt budget amendment number 74. Are there any other discussions?
Question. This is that money that was kind of passing through us from the state?
Yes.
Okay, so it's a
Yes,
it's a wash.
it's for those two studies. And basically what it's saying is the purchase order has brought forward $80,245 and encumbered the fund balance automatically. Also at June 30th, 2014, the DOT owed us $1,000 on it.
Right. And
So it's just
Wayne
that,
County just served as the vehicle to make this money and make
That's
the
correct.
payments on this. It wasn't something coming out of our fund balance. Just want
that's
to
right.
be clear about
We
that.
initially show it as fund balance because it wasn't all there, but
Right.
then you take it back off.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion, gentlemen? Having heard none, I ask you for an approval of this by show of your right hand. Unanimous? Does this conclude our amendments, Mr. Wood? This concludes our amendment.
Yes, sir. Oh, that's the agenda, I mean, that's the amendment,
Budget
yes, sir.
amendments.
Mhm.
We're down to item number 5, update from county manager on capital projects. Yes.
Okay. As I mentioned before, Milford Smith and his group, along with Noel Woods, have been working on a list of the outstanding projects. I want to stress this does not include the IT projects. It also does not include other projects we're doing, for instance, that may not be capital. These are capital projects. And so what we've asked Milford to do is to come today and kind of go over this list with you. This is our first shot at it. So if you want to see something in a little different format, we can certainly do that. But we've tried to give you the relevant information on each one, including in the far right corner, some notes. What we plan on doing is projects will stay on here till they're completed, and then we'll mark at that quarterly meeting that it's been completed. After that, it won't show up anymore. But we'll carry it through to completion before we delete it so that you know it has been done. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to turn it over to Milford and let him walk you through these projects.
Mr. Smith?
Okay, has everybody got a copy?
Yes.
Okay. First project would be the modernization of the elevators in this building. As you can see from the spreadsheet there, we have expended $108,000, and that's, we paid for the hydraulic units that are built and ready to be put in. It has not started on premises yet, because the crew that's going to build it is working at the county office building, which is project number 2. When they finish there, they'll move into this building. That first elevator at the county office building is ready for commission. We're waiting on Department of Labor to get its sea trials. And we'll start one elevator up, and then they'll move. The second one's almost ready, because a lot of the work that they did so far was pertinent to both elevators, but they had to keep one running. So the second elevator won't take 2 or 3 weeks, is what they're telling me. So that project will wind up before October, hopefully. Project number 3, the county office building roof. We're having a meeting this week to determine an area at the county office building that we can use for a lay-down area. They plan on being on site this coming Monday. They have bought the materials, and it's ready to be delivered. Project number 4, we've not really taken any action on that yet, because that building has been occupied. We do have the asbestos removal done. And so that project can move forward as soon as we get the go-ahead. Project number 6 is removing old services on aging. It was determined about 2 years ago that building is not in condition to be remodeled. It's not economically feasible. We have the assessment done on removing asbestos. And asbestos is going to be with us for years. It's going to continue to be a cost.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. Where is the old services for the aging?
Across the street. The old BB&T building.
The old BB&T building.
Mm-hmm. Beside Will Sullivan.
So we are actually tearing that building down.
That's our proposal, yes, sir. We have an engineer's report from, well, 3 years ago now, that did an assessment on it. There's actually an underground stream underneath that building. The building is cracked and is actually broken in 2. And it came from the mold that's underneath the building. And of course, it's needed a roof for years, so it's got wooden truss in it and they're rotten. And it's just, recommendation from the engineer was it's just not worth it.
Well, and that's kind of what I wanted to kind of out there in the public domain, and that is the
Understand.
reasons for that.
It's a beautiful facade on that building, and everybody
is.
hates to see it go.
But you go inside.
But you go inside and you'll come out coughing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's full of mold, terrible.
And we had been approached by the Downtown Development Authority about what would we lease it for. And I did not respond yet, because I wanted to have this update and then get back with y'all to make sure that's where you want to go as far as demolition.
Well, the liability, if there's, the mold is so bad, is such, not only that, you go to the second floor and it's a belly in that thing, like, I was afraid to walk across it.
Question. Go ahead.
That's the building we got sump pumps running in the basement, is that right?
Well, this whole part of town, we have sump pumps running in all of our buildings.
Okay.
Because we're sitting on a river.
So we have an official engineering study that says that the building foundation it's not habitable,
Right,
it's not safe.
exactly.
Okay, I'm for tearing it down myself.
Well, and it brings up, you know, in facilities, when you're dealing with this many buildings, one thing leads to another.
Yeah.
Now, we're currently using that building to house our surplus property. And it's getting ruined because the water just runs in there when it rains. So we've got, not only do we have to get stuff out of there, we gotta find somewhere to put our surplus property. And right this second, we don't have anywhere, so.
What do you describe as surplus property?
Anytime somebody replaces a desk, a chair, anything in any of our buildings that people no longer use or they replace, we don't just, especially if it's got an asset number, we just don't throw it away. You know, a lot of times we put it on gov deals or somebody else in the county can, and I like this word, repurpose it, you know.
Yeah.
So we keep it for some period of time, hoping that, you know, we can save some money.
My question was, after we tear it down, we know the river's running underneath that thing. Is it gonna be suitable to build on again, or what's the thought on that?
Parking lot.
As,
What can we do?
as we're finding out, you know, the building code changes. I mean, our William Street property is being affected by the new seismic regulations, you know, that's gonna limit what we can do with it when it comes to a jail or whatever. It's feasible that it could be, reused as a parking lot. This part of town, to me, is not suitable for multi-story building. Okay? There's just too much water. It's too much. It can be overcome, but the square foot cost of building in bad conditions is terrible, you know.
Okay.
Not that it can't be done. I mean, they build in Florida, in swamps, you know, it can be done, but at a cost. Okay. Uplift resources. You got any more questions? I'm sorry.
I had one other question.
Okay.
At what point, how long do you think it will be before we actually tackle the tearing down of the building?
It needs to be very soon.
So sometime
I just
this
need to go
fiscal
ahead.
year, you think we
Yes, sir.
would resolve that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Has the previous board made an official motion to declare it surplus and authorize the demolition?
No, sir.
Okay, then we'll schedule that on your agenda, and we'll include the engineering report on that as well.
Okay.
Well, Marcia, if you would make sure we add that to the agenda, please.
One, as I heard you say, it might be used as a parking lot. Do we need something in writing that say what it could be used for, or do we need to not jump that far ahead?
I wouldn't jump that far ahead. I would see if somebody approaches you about wanting to build a parking lot, you don't have to build it.
Well, and just one other point, and that is, that being the case, and you are using that for some storage, I'm wondering whether or not we need to kind of hold off before we tear down that old facilities building. Maybe that can be used temporarily for some storage.
As I said previously, everything in facilities ties in together. You know.
You're right.
And we've got some ideas of some other buildings that we want
Okay.
to do in that part of town.
Okay.
And it depends on our time frame in doing that.
Okay, thank you.
Which leads me to project number 7, tearing down Uplift Resources. That's an old white house. That's on Ash Street, right there in the parking lot, across from the county office building. The house is rotten. It's not really, and we've got Pooh Street that we're just putting cabling into. We could very easily move those folks from Uplift Resources right into Pooh Street if you so desire. But it needs to come down as part of like I said, a larger plan of, you know.
Right. So, Mr. Smith, not to interrupt, but next time we see, you can have a little sketch, a little yellow brick road, how you gonna move the stuff from this one to that one and move the other people from back there and then.
We'd love to do that, you know, but part of our charge with the facilities committee for the past year and a half has been to map out where we need to go with.
Right.
We've got a lot of assets, we've got a lot of buildings. We need to strategically plan where we're going,
Right.
you know. And the time's coming when we've talked about a lot of different things. But at some point, we need to just map it out. And,
Very good. Go ahead.
and the same, both of those two houses, Uplift Resources and CSC, they're side by side in that parking lot there. Project number 9 is just asbestos abatement for CSC. Anytime we tear something down, we've got to do a full study on it and take care of that. Project number 10, Wayne Executive Jetport hangar door. That project is about 75% complete. And I'd like to add that it's working out really good. Our new track that we had built, Benton & Sons here in town made it for us. It's made a world of difference. You can open those doors now without any danger. I mean, you can take one hand and open them. And we did that repair in-house.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to expand on that a little bit. Being on the Jetport Advisory Committee, I want to brag on our facilities director because, as most of you know, the last year and a half or so, we've actually been putting out fires in this county, trying to catch up with facilities. And I want you to share how much the bid was on redoing those hangar doors and how much it's actually going to cost us by going using a local shop to manufacture these rails and taking a shortcut, which is coming out great because it's all stainless, I believe.
It's galvanized.
It's galvanized.
10 gauge galvanized.
Okay. How much money did we save on those hangar doors? Do you remember?
The original estimate was $60,000. I said I could name that tune in $30,000, and we're actually going to do it for less than 15, and now it's going to be electrically operated and so forth. And we're real pleased, and let me say this: I'm going to throw the ball right back in your court. Those 5 or 6 guys that I had today that got their service pins, if you remember, a year and a half ago, the board allowed me to fill the vacancies that were in my department. I like to, and that you're seeing the fruits of that today because of the caliber of people that I was able to hire are really good maintenance men and can do most anything. And this is an example of how much money we can save in-house with the right people.
But you are in that 15,000 estimate. I want to be clear, is that you are charging out a certain amount for your labor, the county labor, the guys working for you?
Our system's not set up that way.
Uh-huh.
That's just for parts.
Right. But
It would be interesting at some point if we could evolve into tracking man hours.
yeah, but you're estimating how many? Do you know how many hours that you're going to have as far as your?
We won't have 40 hours in it.
Okay, well, you know, even if you charge it out at $100 an hour.
And by 40 hours, that's a 4-man crew working 40 hours, so
Okay.
160 man hours.
Well, even if you charge it out at $100 an hour.
Yeah, we
you know,
still save a
You're
lot
still
of
saving a
money.
lot of money.
Right.
That's the point. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And to tell you the truth, our guys enjoy doing things like that.
Yeah.
It gets them away from changing light bulbs and ceiling tiles. EMS tower sites, I spoke with Mel earlier. We took delivery of the towers yesterday. And that don't have a lot to do with facilities except for Thursday we found out they were coming yesterday. And when we go out to Coker's Mill, the mud was almost calf deep. So we had to buy a lot of rock and prepare a pad for the crane to sit on. And we took our equipment out there and did it ourselves. And it was ready yesterday for the crane. So, which, you know, we bought 4 loads of rocks, and that's not, that's not that much money, but what I'd like to bring out is we'll repurpose those rocks when the tower's through. That's the rocks that we'll move then from the construction side of the site into the gated area where we need rock anyway. So The mobile dental lab, it's been powered up. And I'd like to say, David, they did a really good job with that. We saved a lot of money. It's a nice lab if you haven't had a chance to stop by and see it. It's wired up. I've worked with the school system, and they are getting their cords together, and it'll be ready for them to use as soon as they get their cords up.
Let me
Sorry, Mr. Dr. Quayle.
comment on that because I have had several conversations with Mr. Madden on that. I see he's left. But they are actually having everything checked out and so forth in that, and what facilities had to do is actually get power and serviced there so they could power it all up. They've got to get certifications on their new machine, this panoramic type of
They actually had an
X-ray machine.
inspection Friday, this past Friday.
They did?
Mhm.
So there has been a little bit of a delay, but we're hoping within the next couple of weeks, we'll actually have a tour of that dental lab for the commissioners. I'm waiting for him.
I guess that's what I was. Go ahead.
Schedule yet, Minister, when they're gonna start going out to the schools?
Well, no, they have not as yet. I think they're working with the schools to actually have those utilities in place so that they can bring, start taking it out there. I think he's talking somewhere around November to actually implement the program. But I did want the entire board to have a tour of that, the school board as well, and I think they're scheduling that here within the next few weeks.
Okay.
Just for public consumption, that was a lab that was coming from out of state and had been refurbished or upgraded or?
That is correct.
All right.
Our IT department actually found a little bit of a problem there, in which the upgrade was supposed to include certain IT items, and they found out that it evidently wasn't there, so they are actually bringing that about. And hats off to our IT department for finding that.
And this is the marriage between our
Health
department and the school system, like our ongoing program of dental, so forth in the school. All right.
Project 13 and 14, that's one of those things that are tied in together. We don't know what we're gonna do with Will Sullivan Building yet, or where we're gonna put probation and parole. That's another thing we're gonna have to cross that bridge at some point.
Are you getting an engineer's report on that, or are you getting some report in regards to renovations or
Not at this point.
demolition or whatever?
At this point, we haven't.
Okay, so you hadn't got to that.
No, because my instinct wants to tell me that if we build a parking lot where the senior center is, we can make a much nicer parking lot if that building won't make it. You probably aren't aware, but we can't use the bottom floor of that building because of water floods. The wiring system in it is so old that it's still wool wrapped insulation. My guys are scared to work on it. It's so old. At the point that a main breaker goes out in that building, and it could happen any minute because of its age, we're gonna spend a lot of money because those breakers just aren't available. Some of them should be in a museum, to be honest with you. We might could repurpose them, sell them to a museum.
On another topic, I hope we save those parts of the old elevator out of the county office building, because that definitely needs to be in a museum.
Well, you know what, for somebody that's still, if anybody's still using that 1946 model Otis, those parts would be worth a fortune.
They would be.
Yeah. Okay, project number 15, we were challenged to improve the acoustics in courtroom 1. And Mr. Wood and I went to Greenville to look at a very similar courtroom, and the acoustics there are just fantastic. And by comparison, ours are terrible. So we started a project to improve the acoustics. The first thing we did was we put new insulation overhead. If you've ever looked up at the ceiling in there, we can't keep paint on it because it sweats. And so it was a tin ceiling, and the sound just reverberates off that tin. So we We went in 2 weekends ago and sprayed in foam insulation, which solved another problem that we had in the area of that old courthouse where Barbara Arnson and Wayne's offices are, and Judge Jones's office. It was constantly getting mold and mildew in it. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's not mold and mildew. It's damp conditions that attract dust. As y'all know, I don't allow mold and mildew in Wayne County. But it's cured that as well. We do have designers working on the acoustic panels like Pitt County has. We're estimating that's going to be, anywhere from $25,000 to $40,000, depending on which design model we choose to go with. It's going to be money well spent because it's a really nice courtroom, and the acoustics in there give you a headache. I mean, it's terrible.
It's actually a much prettier courtroom than what they had in Greenville. Greenville is nice, I'm not taking anything away from it, but ours is actually bigger and prettier, but the acoustics are terrible. I think when Joe got sworn in, you could hear some of the reverberation in there. In that courtroom in Greenville, there's none of that. The sound quality is just excellent. We sat through a trial for about 10 minutes because we wanted to hear the various parties. I wanted to hear the judge speak, defense counsel speak, the prosecutor speak, and from any vantage point in there, we were sitting in the back of the room, and we were able to hear everything clearly.
Any questions about that? Okay, item number 17 is backup 911 air conditioners. We established a backup 911 center there. We had to add the appropriate air conditioning to accommodate the servers and so forth. That's complete. We got a small punch list, and that's why I listed it there. It's not 100%. The Dudley EMS station roof, as I've said 10 times since I've been up here, that's part of a bigger issue of what we're going to do with the EMS stations. If we stay in that building, we've got to put a roof on it. If, however, we consolidate some stations or move some stations, maybe not. And that's what we're going to ask Mr. Cromartie. I think you said a yellow brick road. That's part of that plan.
And let me just tie into that real quickly. I was going to mention in my remarks, but we have finished our interviews of all the EMS director candidates, and I hope to make a decision on that by the end of this week. And once we get that person on, one of the high priorities there is looking at the station location study that we've talked about. And we will probably be bringing in some resources from the state on that they have. I don't think you have to pay for them through Department of OES at the state level. So we will be tying that in and then get with the Facilities Committee at some point with that as well. But initially, the study needs to be done internally by the Office of Emergency Services as to where we should ideally have them, which ones do we have that'll work. The question has come up whether we want to do the Dudley or not, is why we've been holding off. So we'll shortly have that person on board and can start that process.
Question. Do we own that building in Dudley?
Yes.
Okay. Is that a tin roof or a metal roof?
No, it's a PVC roof, and there's no repair to it. A rubber roof you can repair, shingle roof you can repair. PVC roof, once the UV rays attack it and get down to the fiber in it, you tear it off. Now, as a sidebar to that, I did put money in our budget this year for, Joe, you remember, was it $250,000 for it was $250,000 for a new station at a point to be determined. That was just the facilities cost for it, with the idea that we would come up with a design for what we wanted our EMS stations to be, go forward with that design, build one. The next time we need a station, use the same prints, just blueprint that all over the county.
in discussions, if I remember correctly, that was an area that since we do have a full-fledged facility, services personnel, that we can save a lot of money on building these cookie cutter EMS stations when we go that route. So, Milford, a year or so ago, already came up with an idea about how much it would cost for a certain size. So, when we get our new director on, I really think we need to push this up on the priority list.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what I was saying, is once they get on board, then we can look at that. The other thing that ties into the station locations is also the type of stations you need, and one of the things that dictates that is the type of shift you use. And so that's one of the things we also need to make some determinations on going forward. You know, are we gonna keep the current shift? Are we gonna be looking at something slightly different or whatever? But those kinds of decisions need to be made on the front end, because the building is just a tool, you know, to get the work done. And so I wanted to afford the new director an opportunity to get on board and have input into that.
Okay, any questions about that? Then we're down to the new jail facilities. Mr. Wood forwarded to me an agreement with Mosley Architects that he and I are going to discuss, and we'll have some information coming later on.
Yeah, and we're on the second round of negotiations there. The first round, I've met with them, asked for some changes, and they have sent back in their proposal on that, and Milford and I are reviewing that, and then we hope to get with them later this week, early part of next week. But we will also, next week, I believe it's the 27th, John, is that right?
Yeah.
The jail facility, the jail committee, and Ray is head of the facilities committee, and all of you are invited to go if you'd like to, is we're basically going to take an all-day trip, but we're going to drive to Rowan County, which is Salisbury, about an hour north of Charlotte. If you recall, Mosley Architects talked about they had done a satellite jail there for misdemeanors. And so we're going to look at that Rowan County jail, and then we're going to travel about an hour and a half south of there and go to York County, South Carolina. York is a county of about 200,000 people, and we'll be in the just outside of York, which is just past Rock Hill. And we'll be touring there, and the primary reason that Mosley wants us to see that is that jail, they designed that jail, and it has the steel cells that we were talking about, the inserts. And so the modules, so they want us to see what the steel ones look like. We've seen the concrete ones over in Lenoir County. I think several of us went over there and toured that. This would afford us an opportunity to see what the steel inserts look like on that. So that's pretty much going to be an all-day thing. I think we were talking about leaving around 7:30 in the morning. And the sheriff and Fane Greenfield are going with us. So again, I want to invite all of you who would like to go. It will be an all-day deal, because as y'all know, Charlotte's about a 4-hour trip from here. So we'll hit Salisbury about 3 hours in, probably finish up there, maybe grab a bite to eat, then head to York. And then when we get through with that, it's about a 4.5-hour trip from there.
Just want to make sure we have air conditioning.
Air conditioner is fixed, and I am driving.
Thank you.
So.
And I did want to just mention, that van, I don't know if it's going to be very comfortable for about an 8-hour trip. We may want to seriously consider looking at maybe just some passenger vehicles. And I'll be happy to drive mine, and we may possibly get something from the sheriff as well. I mean, we can take the van, but those seats, as y'all know, it's one thing to take a 2 or 3 hour trip in it. An all-day trip, we may want to think about that.
I'd like to add to that, those seats are simply straight backed, and they're not comfortable. They're not.
I need to recline.
And we are over 60, aren't we?
You know, they list it as a 10-passenger van.
Yeah.
But for 10 people to ride in there any distance, you'd have to be really good friends.
I'm wondering if it has something to do with the driver, though. I think the driver has something to do with it.
Well, we can change that too, though. Mr. Chairman. The good news is that none of these have overhead garages.
Mr. Woods, we were talking one time about modifying one of those vans. The seat, really, we were seriously talking about that.
Yeah.
And making it where we could take a trip like that and it wouldn't be so uncomfortable.
Right.
Now, just because I know we got people that can get all the costs and everything, it would not prevail upon us to get one of those coach buses?
I looked into that, not for the county, but for the Chamber of Commerce, so that they wouldn't have to borrow the sheriff's inmate bus. That's a lot of money.
It is.
Even used ones with 200,000 miles on them are
No, I didn't mean buy it. I'm sorry. I meant just for that one day.
Okay.
You're just talking about renting something.
Yes, for that one day. No, I wasn't talking.
Milford, do you want to look into that?
I'll look into that.
Well, I do know that Gateway actually does have, surprising to me, there were 2 Dodge Caravans that they have there, so I don't know whether or not that's a possibility.
I'll look into it. But I tend to agree with Mr. Woods. We could probably take 3 to 4 vehicles.
Yeah. And be more
And
comfortable.
the extra gas would be cheaper than the bus, probably.
Yeah, that's.
They're not easy.
Okay.
Okay, William Street property, we have no decision made on that yet, so there's nothing really to report. Genoa sewer system testing and repairing, we've done almost everything in-house there. We've had to call King Plumbing for 1 manhole. We've got them scheduled to come in and fix another. That our excavator just is not big enough, nor do we have the ditch boxes and so forth to go with it. And then we're gonna need to buy and replace 1 manhole. But about 80% of that list that we've discovered from our assessment from the engineering report, we've already fixed in-house. So we're hoping to see a big reduction in infiltration and inflow in the coming months. As you know, we've had a lot of rain, so. But I'm real proud of where we've taken that sewer system because, as I said, we've done most all of it in-house. As far as the sewer leaks at the Jetport, there again, we've made a lot of strides. We've, at the board meeting last week, I guess they found a container of blueprints that are proving to be real helpful. I think, Joe, did you find those? Yeah. And on those prints, we see a total of 3 sewer tanks that we never even knew. Well, we knew one of them was there, and we're in the process of doing something about it. We found 2 more sewer tanks. Now, the thing about a sewer tank, it's going to take in groundwater, and that, in turn, when it's connected to our sewer system, we pay sewer fees on it as it drains into our system. So we're going to see about correcting that.
But y'all know, we took over the airport, what, in 2009?
Yeah.
So there's still a few things out there we're learning about, and this is one of them.
Yeah, there's a lot, because we never knew these prints existed. We've been chasing this sewer problem for years, but it's like a puppy chasing its tail. If you don't have to see what's underground, you just don't know. That's about all I have to say about the projects. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer.
I guess the only other question I would have is quarterly sufficient to come in and give you an update on this?
Yeah.
I don't want to take time every single month, I don't think, but quarterly, you should get a pretty good feel for how we're moving.
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless you got some big news on one particular project.
Yeah, and on that, we'll just bring Milford in and give you an update on it.
Yeah, just for, give us a report on the priorities that we're working on.
Right.
Yeah.
But we'll plan on doing this then every quarter from here on out then, Milford, if you would.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
Next item on our new business list, item number 6. Mr. Wood?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think it'd probably be best if I just defer to Mr. Daugherty on this. He is the chair of our Transportation Committee, and he's the one who brought it to my attention and asked us to prepare the resolution. So Joe, if you'd like to make comments on it.
Well, as I stated this morning in our work session, it was brought to our attention last Monday that a bill had been introduced in the Senate by Senator Kay Hagan, and a companion bill was introduced in the U.S. House of Representatives by Congressman Butterfield, and that those bills designated U.S. Highway 64 and U.S. Highway 17 as future interstate highways. It did not mention our 795, the continuation and completion of 795 down to 40. And this resolution basically is asking that the senator and congressman amend their bills to include the designation of the segment U.S. Highway 17 from Goldsboro South to its intersection with Interstate 40 as a future interstate highway. So, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve this resolution requesting an amendment to the Route to Opportunity and Development Act of 2014 and the companion U.S. House Bill number 4829.
It's in the form of a
That
motion.
is in the form of a motion.
A motion is on the floor for the resolution as explained by Mr. Daughtry. Are there any other discussions? Having heard none, gentlemen, I ask for a vote to support this resolution by show of your right hand. Unanimous.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr.
I would ask that we ask our clerk to forward that on to Mr. Keene and our governor's office, as well as our congressmen and senators, to ask for some action on that. Additionally, I would ask anyone that is there listening, anyone that may know or contacting Senator Kay Hagan, Senator Richard Burr, or Congressman Butterfield, or any of our congressmen, to do so and encourage them to ask that this bill be amended.
Thank you, Mr. Doctor, and I would add that to encourage anyone who may have the ear or an opportunity to come in contact with those folks to do exactly what Mr. Daughtry has requested. And I say this not just speaking to this body right here, but the public who would see this have a far greater reach than just us sitting here. So those of you who are listening to this and know either one of the players personally or expect to see them soon, please help us out on this for the benefit of Wayne County. Thank you, Mr. Daughtry.
Do we have a motion, or did we?
No, I was just making a comment.
He was just adding on.
Yeah.
We had already passed the
You already
resolution.
passed the motion, okay.
He was asking Ms. Marshall to do
Okay.
what she's gonna do, and we are gonna do what we're gonna do.
And we're asking the public to do what they can do.
Right, thank you.
Okay.
That concludes our new business agenda, and we're open for county manager's comments.
Mr. Chairman, I just have a few. Just to remind everybody, I think we've already mentioned it earlier in the meeting, but the orientation session at 2 o'clock on Thursday here, that's for the Gateway Board, but it's opened up to both the Board of Commissioners and to the City Council to get an overview on public transportation in North Carolina, and specifically how ours is set up here. We will also have some of our finance staff attending, as well as some of the staff from, key staff from Gateway. So I would encourage all of you to come and see that. If you're not able to attend, we will be recording it so that you can come back at a later date, or just see Barbara Arnston and she can get that for you. I already mentioned to you that the EMS director, we've completed all of the interviews, and I will be making that appointment shortly. The airport manager interviews, we have narrowed those down to 5 at this point, and we will be doing those interviews this Friday and hope to make a decision shortly thereafter. So we are moving forward with these various positions. We've also completed the ad and are getting that out on the Assistant County Manager. And of course, that would be the old OES Director slot. And with the appointment of Alan Lumpkin at the last meeting, I believe that's the major vacancies that we have at this point. So that should be all of those. Jail Committee, we already mentioned on the 27th, the tour of Rowan County and York County. And again, I would encourage all of you to go to that if you can, because I think both of those have some key components into our decision-making process about what we're going to do about a satellite jail, and then whether or not we're going to use these kind of inserts, prefab almost type cells as far as on the new jail. So I would encourage you to try to go to that if you can. And with that, those are my comments, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. I would like to go back and give you a real shout out for arranging the 2 to 4 o'clock session on Gateway. It's very important for our county, that very issue, and the more we know about it and can treat it appropriately is best for all of us. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Board member comments. I'll start on my far right, Mr. Bell.
You must be right-handed. Listen, I didn't attend any board meetings, but I do have a couple of requests that I'd like to make to the commission. I mentioned this to Mr. Wood while we was in Asheville. I spoke with Todd McGee of the association, and he's willing to come and give us a complete update on this year's legislators' accomplishment and what they didn't do and what they expected to do in the whole work. And I thought it would be a good idea that if he would come, and he said he's spending as much time as he need to come and update us all at one time, and so we would know exactly what happened at this year's legislative session. And my second request is that I noticed that some of the states, and Georgia being one of them, had invited some of their high school students to the legislative conference in D.C. Had about 2 students from each school. And I think we ought to take a look at that and see if we can't get the school board to include that into their curriculum over there, to give the students something to work towards going to D.C. in March. Not just any student, but some of your top students, that could work towards that, maybe write a good essay or something like that, and will be funded by the county commissioners. So not approving today, but just something to think about if we want to work on that.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to follow up on that. When Commissioner Bell and I discussed that, I thought that was a great idea about having Mr. McGee come in. As y'all know, he's the public information officer for the county association. So if y'all would like us to do that, Marcia can go ahead and make contact with him. Is that something that the board would like to do?
I think that would be a good idea, and I just asked this question not to. Is that something we would invite anyone else to come to hear him?
Well, you
say
could,
that?
that's not a bad idea if you'd like to invite some surrounding counties, and that way he could,
Well, I was just thinking that, not that he would be making great use of his time with us, but just to open it up. And Mr. Wood, you think about that, and the audience that might be appropriate, might want to hear him outside of Wayne County and in Wayne County, because he'll be talking about subjects that's just entirely apropos for every person who has a vested interest in what's going on in North Carolina.
right.
I heard, I'll wait on that. Don't want to jump ahead. I almost ready to editorialize. Mr. Mayor. I was gonna get Mr. Gurley, but he moved, so I have to go back.
Were you finished?
Oh, I'm
with
sorry, I
that?
think John was finished. Were you finished, John?
Yeah, I'm
Oh, I
through.
thought so.
okay.
I only gave him a look that he was finished.
Boy, I've been busy, like all of us have. On the 6th of August, I attended a workforce learning summit at Lenore Community College. It was 3 counties came together, which Wayne, Lenore, and Dupin counties. The subject was Line 4 NC Works, ensuring that North Carolina is #1 in workforce. And the presentation was by Dr. Scott Rawls. There's 4 partners that's involved in this Line 4 NC Works. Our colleges, our commerce, DPI, the Department of Instruction, and industry. And the guiding objectives for this coming year is alignment, responsiveness, engagement, and accountability. As you know, our community colleges are very, very critical to economic development. Training and education is very important. And I'm really glad that I went to this because you learn so much from what other counties are doing, but you know, you also see how blessed Wayne County is financially and otherwise as compared to a lot of other counties. So it was a good session. We also attended the end of session legislative update at Langtree, even though we had a couple of legislators that couldn't attend. That was a good session. We also attended the groundbreaking for Grantham and Spring Creek schools. I also had the opportunity to attend the Purple Heart banquet and ceremony at the First Church. I go to this, I try to make a point to go to this every year because it's always a heartwarming experience, honoring our Purple Heart recipients, but not only that, but all men and women who have served in our military and in some cases gave the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom. We also met with the WCDA Wayne County Development Alliance Board meeting, and Mike Haney, who's the interim director, did a great job of organizing that along with Tiffany Creech and Jeremy Caton, and our new chairman, Kevin Carnegie, did a great job of going through what we needed to do in that meeting. So we are in the process of, I'm on the nominate committee of the WCDA along with Neil Benton and Ray Morgan and George Wood, our county manager. And we're in the process of trying to get scheduled a time that we can look at the applications we have received for the director of the Wayne County Development Alliance. It hasn't worked this week so far, so we're looking to see what we can do to get that meeting scheduled with Sanford Hohauser. As the county manager's already reported, we had a Jetport advisory meeting. We are planning on doing interviews, have scheduled interviews for this coming Friday. And the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners meeting we attended up in Asheville, the opening session to me was very touching because the opening session, the keynote speaker was Neil Peterson, and he shared the obstacles that he had gone through and bringing himself up through from poverty to where he's at today. And I love his slogan. His slogan, I wrote it down. He says, "No barriers, only solutions." That was his slogan. You know, when you listen to this story, and it's like that across the country, we have the opportunity, if we really apply ourselves, to do exactly what Peterson did. He brought himself up from poverty to where he's at today. There was the other thing I found out, and of course Commissioner Pate may allude to this, is that another thing we found out is that it may not be the right time to consider consolidation of health and human services. There's a lot of issues with that. Might want to let some of the other counties get some of the cobwebs out of the system before we even look at it. But I think one of the ones that really stuck out was we attended the strategically thinking about economic development plans and policies. And of course, county manager was there also. There was a long discussion on incentive policies for economic development in North Carolina, from the state level to the DOT transportation formula that is used to prioritize projects. Not only have I had alluded from this seat in our county, not only does it affect east of I-95, these policies are affecting the extreme western counties in North Carolina also. What I did find out is that, again, Wayne County overall should be thankful, and we are blessed to be financially where we are. There's some counties that I sit beside a commissioner from Yancey County that has 18,000 residents. This guy was a county commissioner. He was HR director.
OES.
He was OES director. Look, we don't have that issue here in Wayne County. And let's thank God we don't. But I think that is the key of going to these conferences, is that not only, and of course, George Wood and I, we participated in this and let them know what Wayne County was doing as far as workforce development and things like that. So a lot of times it's not, you don't go to learn something, a lot of times you go to give something to someone else, another county that would possibly help them. So I took my 10 minutes. So off camera earlier, Commissioner Gamarty and I were kidding with each other, and I wanted to say to him that I appreciate you representing my party today as chairman of the county commissioners. We have set precedents today, by the way. We have set precedent today as a commission. So I wanted to say thank you, and you've done a good job. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayo. And I would not politicize that statement.
Yeah.
It's just that I look out into the camera to our public, and they all know that I'm representing everybody. So this is not a partisan thing, and I appreciate you saying that. And all good Republicans are eligible to vote for us. So remember that 117 South. I didn't bring it up.
That's all my comments,
Thank
Mr.
you,
Chairman.
Mr. Curley, I was going to get you before Mr. Mayo, but you had stepped out for a moment.
Yeah, I have allergy problems this morning. This past Saturday, I had the opportunity to go down to Mount Olive and attend the Masonic Cornerstone rededication, Steelmore Library. It was very well attended on a beautiful day at such a beautiful facility, and I think our part is that we need to help the library in the town of Mount Olive market the library for use. It's a great facility. We need to try to market it and get people to go by and visit with them. And I look forward this Thursday morning, our interim Gateway Director begins. Thursday morning, 8 o'clock, we meet with him and the chairman of the Gateway Board, give him an orientation. So we look forward to that as well. And on behalf of Chairman Aycock's not able to be here today, I want to mention that the Fireman Association meets tonight at Jordan's Chapel at 7 o'clock. If y'all can attend, you're certainly welcome. Thank you.
I was trying to decide which one I was going to get. I'm sorry, Mr. Payne.
Thank you. We'll say a little bit more about the Purple Heart Banquet. Ray said a lot of the things I would have said, but you've got to understand how hard this group of people that put this together, what they did, and their dedication to our veterans. And you should have seen these people working. Bill Graham as the chairman, myself and Bill Broadway from the city, the co-chairs, and really what he did, he just needed 2 extra people he could work at that. But it was a labor of love, it really was, and I really enjoyed being a part of it for the second year. And it was just a great thing. In Asheville, I'm representing District 3, took over Mr. King's position on the board, and you guys didn't get a chance to listen to that, but there are a few things that came out of that meeting I wanted to share with you. We had Colonel Mike Ray from the North Carolina National Guard come and speak to us, and this is something I didn't realize was going on. Not only we've seen some downsides in our military, but it's also impacting our National Guard facilities. They are going to be calling them regional readiness centers. The goal is to downsize from 93 to 47 across the state. Of course, my wheels got turned. I said, well, how about Goldsboro? But you hadn't seen the picture of it, but we're in what they call the hub, so the Goldsboro-Wilson facilities most likely are going to be safe. Those facilities that are east of Wayne County are pretty much, if this happens, will disappear. And the idea is that the question was asked, well, why not? That's going to be ones that will be impacted by hurricanes. We want to move them back away from the coast, so after the disaster takes place, we'll be able to go forward there. And but I just didn't have any idea that this was going on, and that's and they also talked a lot about the fact that the recruitment for the National Guard is a real difficult challenge, and that's part of the problem as well. Now, the facilities themselves, there was a aversion clause in those, and they'll either go back to cities or counties, whoever made that particular deal. But this is something I think we need to keep our eye on. There was a long discussion about MCOs, and I won't go into a great deal on that because we talked about that from time to time, going out from 9 to 4, but there was concern from the board of directors if this does happen, they turn it to ACOs, I think that's the new term, right? That there may be loss of commissioner representation on these boards. So obviously they're not against that because they want to have a voice at the table. So we had a fellow, Mike Hughes, he's the VP of Community Relations for Duke Energy, come and talk with us. And of course, the biggest topic of discussion on that was the coal ash ponds, which we have one here in Wayne County, our facility out here. Before anybody jumps on with General Assembly or anybody, I'll tell you, this is a complicated issue. There are 102 million tons that are being stored at this time in North Carolina. He used an example of Lake Norman, which is one of the biggest places they have. They've got 22 million tons stored there. So if they use trucks 24/7, it would still take 30 years to move it out of there.
Let me hear that again.
30 years, 24/7, trying to move it out with trucks. So they're still trying to determine what they're going to do, how they're going to do it, and what the long-term impact and where they're going to put it. And then they talked about renewable energy too. That currently they're having to buy 3%, and then by 2021 it goes up to 12%. Of course, I called him out of the room and asked him the question. I said, "Do you have any impact or any influence as to where these solar and wind turbine facilities are placed?" And because I told him, we discussed the fact about the impact on the mission of Seymour Johnson. He said, "Well, Duke's responsible, and we support the military." But never really asked. I asked that question outside. And finally, and Mr. Mayo mentioned that this was in another meeting, not in that particular meeting. I did sit in on that consolidation for DSS and health departments, and actually other departments too. But a lot of counties, I think, are blazing the path, which I don't think we need to do, to consolidate. Well, the problem is their rules are so different in terms of the confidentiality. You can't share information. You really can't. And they would put this board in being responsible, and we would have to make the decisions. Yet there would be still advisory boards on DSS, or maybe there's a couple of models, one for health department, one for DSS, or to combine that, either one. You end up with the same thing. And then you end up having to hire an additional person over that. And I kept asking, I says, well, what good is this? And I finally asked a real question: did you save any money? No, but we think we're going to. So until such time that dollars can be saved, I don't think we need to blaze that path. And I discussed that with Mr. Wood too. And I think you are the same opinion. I think we need to let this thing just, other counties do this and we'll see. And it might make sense for a smaller county, like you're talking about, that commissioner that had to wear a number of hats, and it may help them because they could save some dollars on administrative costs perhaps. But I don't think it would be much of an impact on Wayne County, and I just don't see the need to do it. Anyway, that's my report. Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
I'm going to skip all the way down to the end of my report where we talked about attending the County Commissioners Conference in Asheville. I attended a number of the seminars there, and one of those was communicating better. And it was recommended that individuals limit their comments to 27 words.
That would destroy you, wouldn't it?
And I don't see how that's possible. That just didn't compute with me. But at any rate, I attended seminars on the rail, and a very interesting presentation on the rail. Spoke with CSX, and all of a sudden they don't have the pushback from CSX on the continuation of the rail from Castle Hayne to Wallace. That no longer is an issue as long as the state will fund it. So it was money. It was all about the money, the cost. But needless to say, we did have an interesting conversation on that. One of the seminars I attended was using the internet to connect citizens with county services. You know, I think we need to do a better job of that so that people can actually go on the internet and find out what services are available, who provides them, how do I contact the agency. One of those that was brought up was a better internet connection for our veterans, as an example. So I think we do need to do some studying on that. I also had a very interesting, I don't know if you all stopped by there or not, but I stopped by where I was able to give my input on establishing new priorities for the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners. I think their goals, that not their legislative goals, but some of the goals that they established was decades old. And I think that needs to be updated to today's situations. I also attended and got a great deal out of the legislative update at the Chamber. You know, it's always good to go out and actually meet with our House and our Senate representatives, get their thoughts on what they're working on and what they accomplished there in Raleigh. The Gateway Board. Attended that Gateway Board, and the board unanimously voted to extend an offer to a very highly qualified person as an interim director of Gateway. And I want to take just a moment just to give you a little bit about our new Gateway interim director. His name is Alfred Fontana, and he lives in Cary, North Carolina. And how we stumbled across this gentleman, I don't know, but I want to give a shout out to our county manager for finding him for us. His immediate prior engagement was working with MV Transportation as general manager in Wake County for 7 years. Prior to that, 8 years as the Guilford County Transportation Director. He was the first director of that department and implemented all of the startup of that department and was there for 8 years. Prior to that, 14 years with the city of High Point as transportation director. The gentleman is just absolutely got the qualifications that we need to actually bring to Gateway. So I'm real excited about that. I think Commissioner Gurley indicated he will be here on the job on Thursday, and I look forward to introducing him at the Transportation Committee meeting. The board will hold that informational meeting, as we discussed, this Thursday at 2 o'clock here at the Commissioner's Room. I encourage anyone in the public that wants to know more about Gateway and public transportation to attend that. It was an extremely special day when we left the chamber meeting and going to the groundbreaking of Spring Creek and Grantham Middle Schools. Please note, Spring Creek and Grantham. Most of the time you hear it's Grantham and Spring Creek Middle Schools. This is Spring Creek and Grantham Middle Schools. That groundbreaking was exciting, and I look forward to those openings in August of next year. Over 100 people attended the groundbreaking of Gateway Transfer Station featuring Congressman Butterfield. I was able to speak directly with the legislative assistants of both Senator Hagan and Senator Burr at that meeting about our interstate legislation. I again encourage everyone to reach out to Senator Hagan, Senator Burr, Congressman Butterfield, any of the congressmen, and ask them to have that amendment placed on that bill. The MPO met on Thursday to approve the assignment of points to the transportation projects within the MPO. Again, we are faced with a transportation strategic formula that is skewed in favor of large metropolitan areas and leaves little funding for smaller cities and rural areas. So although they allow us to assign 1,200 points to projects, if the money is not there and available to fund those projects, it does little good to assign points to them. We need desperately to address this unfair funding method as soon as possible. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Doctor. I deferred 30 seconds of my remaining time to Mr. Bill.
Okay, as a little footnote, just to refer to what you said about the downsizing the military, to read military history, after every war or conflict, we downsized the military. During the Korean War, we had to go out and buy stuff back from the surplus store in order to make the military work. After the Vietnam War, we scaled down. The only war that we have to scale down is after the Iraqi War, and we're gonna do that. So we scale down after every war. It's never been, business as usual. It always get that scale down. And it may not be good because the world doesn't change, but we do it anyway. And go back to Todd McGee. We've been talking about getting the East and West to work together. That might be a good time when he get here to kind of nudge him and see what he could do about that.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. I'm going to take liberty just to say one little bit about Mr. Bell's comments about the wars and all that. Sadly, Mr. Bell, it looks like we won't be able to scale back with the world as it is. And this is purely editorializing, but it's also just keeping up with the news. And I ask the public to pray for our leadership, that the right decisions are being made. But those are difficult decisions, and all you have to do is look on the face of the leadership, and you see the stress that's on their faces. And so my concern goes out for them that we do what's needed, but America is obviously the country that has a finger in the dike to keep it from just leaking away, and so we have to, and I'm proud of America for that, but please pray for them. And Mr. Bell, I just had to throw that in on the tail end of what you were saying. I had the opportunity to also attend the Grantham in spring, as we all did, but I just wanted to say it was refreshing, uplifting, pleasant, the weather was beautiful, and the people at both sites were very appreciative of what has been done by the Board of Education and the County Commissioners. There was a larger group at Grantham. And there was just a larger group at Grantham, and there was a lot of hugging and thank yous, and so I enjoyed being among the crowd. I was so busy talking to someone back there, everyone else had already gotten seated, and someone came and pulled me on the sleeve, realized I was late. I jumped around there and was ready to set up there where the Board of Education was. Somebody loud talked me and said, "Come back over here, you're not on the Board of Education." So that was a very joyful time for those communities. I was in Asheville and enjoyed that. Had an opportunity to attend certainly one of the workshops that Mr. Doctor alluded to that had to do with communications. I won't get deep into it, but it did have something to do with the 27 words. I don't know that he said it exactly the way all of it, but to the newspaper, it had something to do with making sure that we fashioned out 27 words when we were giving answers to the newspaper. To be precise and be, so that I just tossed that in to the newspaper. That he didn't add that into. One of the other workshops that I had an opportunity to attend had to do with farming in the and the geographical area of the mountains, not just maybe Buncombe County, but it was the Buncombe and the surrounding counties. And they presented an excellent program on small farming and entrepreneurship at the small farm level. So as all you small farmers out there that think you you need to be a big farmer, it was just fresh. And I brought that information home, and I'm gonna try to make some way to share it with the public, because it was an excellent program, and I enjoyed listening to it. One other thing that I would like to bring out, and I attended, and I know this is not exactly the name of it, but Night Out Against Crime. Is that National Night Out? Okay, I knew I wouldn't get it exactly right, but I attended the one that was held in Mount Olive. There was one going on in Goldsboro also. But the effort was to show our law enforcement in a humanistic light for our young people to understand that law enforcement is out there to protect them at every juncture and to build good relationships. But I say this, good relationships goes in both directions. And so I just want the world to remember that. Good relationships goes in both directions. So let's work on those. That concludes my comments. And Mr. Attorney, do you have anything you'd like to add?
You notice Mr. Kamadi mentioned small farm. Let me tell you the gist of that. He's farming now down in Duplin County. 17 acres of soybeans.
That's true. And it's just amazing that you would go to a workshop that highlighted all that. So it's sort of like a kid in a candy store. I'm looking for the candy. And but just to have just a little bit more gear to that, Miss Marcia took the opportunity to tell me all the things that I had to be sure I had to do to be a good farmer. So that was a real fun time, and we had some good laughs off of that and to talk about that. But it was a very enlightful, informative workshop, conference, one that, Mr. Gurley, you missed a good one, but, you know, can't be in all places at all time. But it was a very good one, and I know that all the other commissioners who were there enjoyed it just like I did. Without anything else?
Motion to adjourn.
I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Woods, that's all they'll let me do.
Motion to adjourn?
Yeah, you can adjourn.
It's on.
Yeah. We gotta vote on that. We gotta vote on it.
Do we? We adjourn.